The wind arrives before the night. It travels a great distance to be here, sweeping down from the high, frozen latitudes of the unseen north, crossing the black waters of the Germanicus, and rolling unobstructed over the heather and the peat of the wild lands. It is a constant presence, a relentless pressure that pushes against the world of men, testing the strength of the stone and the resolve of the spirit. Here, at the edge of the empire, the wind is not merely weather. It is an entity, a heavy, breathing thing that occupies the spaces between the hills and fills the hollows of the valleys with a low, mournful sound. It carries with it the scent of ancient ice and the damp, earthy smell of the bog. It is a cold that does not bite sharply, but rather seeps, slowly and inevitably, through the layers of wool and leather, finding the skin and then the bone, settling deep within the marrow until it feels as though the warmth of the sun is a memory belonging to a different life. The wall stands against this wind. It stretches to the left and to the right, a gray ribbon of imposed order cutting through the chaotic, organic shapes of the landscape. In the fading light of the late afternoon, the stone takes on the color of a bruised sky. It is built of squared blocks, quarried from the bedrock of the province, hewn by the hands of legions who have long since marched on or passed into the earth. The blocks are rough to the touch, pitted by the rain of decades, covered in patches of clinging lichen that paint the gray with strokes of pale green and muted yellow. The mortar that binds them is pale and gritty, a testament to the engineering of a civilization that seeks to draw a line across the world and say, here is where the known ends and the unknown begins. Visually, the scene is drawn in the soft, smudged strokes of charcoal and pastel. The world is reduced to a palette of deep slates, indigos, and the heavy browns of wet earth. There are no sharp edges here. The mist that begins to rise from the low ground blurs the horizon, softening the silhouette of the crags and the distant tree lines until they merge with the heavy clouds above. The light is dimming, sinking into the heavy blue of twilight. A faint, amber glow emanates from a lantern hung on a wooden post near the guard station, a small sphere of warmth that struggles against the encroaching vastness of the dark. It illuminates the texture of the stone wall, casting long, soft shadows that stretch out across the walkway, trembling slightly as the wind disturbs the flame behind the horn panes. To stand watch here is to embrace the stillness. A legionary stands at his post, a solitary figure wrapped in a heavy sagum cloak of thick, coarse wool. The cloak is dyed a deep brownish red, now muted to a dark rust color in the low light. It is heavy, weighed down by the moisture it has absorbed from the air. The weight is comforting, a physical reminder of the barrier between the body and the elements. Underneath, the larica segmentata, the segmented iron armor, presses against the padded subarmales. The metal is cold, a conductor of the chill, but the layers beneath offer protection. The legionary does not move. He has learned the art of stillness, the ability to lock the knees just enough to remain upright without strain, to let the shoulders drop, to conserve every ounce of energy. He looks out over the northern glacis, the slope that falls away from the wall into the ditch, and then rises again into the wild beyond. There is nothing to see but the shifting patterns of the grass and the heather as the wind combs through them. The grass is tall and brown, dead from the winter, lying flat in waves that ripple like the surface of a dark lake. Every now and then a gust catches a patch of bracken, causing it to shudder and dance, a momentary movement in a landscape that is otherwise frozen in a tableau of waiting. The eyes scan the middle distance, not looking for anything specific, but watching for the disruption of the pattern. A shadow that moves against the wind, a shape that does not belong, but there is only the wind and the grass and the coming night. The breathing of the sentry is slow and rhythmic. In, through the nose, feeling the sharp sting of the cold air as it hits the back of the throat. Out, through the mouth, a slow exhalation that forms a cloud of white vapor. The vapor hangs for a moment in the still air of the immediate shelter of the wall's crenellations, illuminated by the faint ambient light, before it is snatched away by the breeze and dissipated into the nothingness. It is a cycle of warmth becoming cold, of life asserting itself against the inanimate stone. The condensation settles on the cheek guards of the helmet, forming tiny beads of water that eventually grow heavy enough to trace cold lines down the metal, dripping onto the woolen scarf wrapped tight around the neck. The soundscape is dominated by the wind, but within that dominance there are layers of sound. There is the high, thin whistle of the air passing through the gaps in the stonework, a sound like a distant flute played by a tired musician. There is the deeper, hollow boom of the wind hitting the broad face of the wall, a sound felt in the chest as much as heard. And beneath that, the subtle, wet sounds of the environment, the drip of water from the eaves of the turret tower behind, the squelch of the sodden earth at the base of the wall where the drainage has slowed, the rhythmic, dull clink of a scabbard hitting the side of a leg as another guard shifts his weight 50 yards down the line. These sounds are repetitive, hypnotic. They do not startle, they lull. They create a blanket of auditory monotony that wraps around the mind, dulling the sharp edges of thought until there is only the observation of the moment. The wall itself feels eternal. To the soldier standing upon it, it seems as though the stones have always been here, growing out of the ridge like the spine of the earth itself. The labor of its construction is a ghost story, a tale of men who dug the ditches and mixed the lime and hauled the blocks. Now, it is simply a fact of geography. The stone is cold under the hand. If one were to remove a glove and press a palm against the parapet, the sensation would be of a profound, draining chill. The stone absorbs heat without returning it. It is indifferent. It stands through the rain, through the snow, through the rare, weak sunshine of the northern summer, and through the endless, grinding gray of the winter. It does not care for the empire it protects or the lands it excludes. It simply is. As the sky darkens further, the colors shift. The gray of the stone deepens into charcoal. The green of the moss turns to black. The blue of the sky becomes an abyssal navy, a heavy lid closing over the world. The lantern light seems to grow brighter by contrast, though its reach is short. It catches the edges of the bronze fittings on the soldier's belt, creating small sparks of metallic reflection in the gloom. It illuminates the texture of the wooden walkway, the rough-hewn planks that are slick with moisture. The grain of the wood is raised, swollen by the damp, dark veins running through the timber. The boots of the legionary, the caligae, are planted firmly on these planks. The hobnails on the soles bite into the wood, providing a grip that is essential in the slick conditions. The leather of the boots is dark, treated with tallow and oil to repel the water, but eventually the damp finds a way. The toes are cold, a dull, numbing sensation that starts at the extremities and works its way inward. It is not painful, not yet. It is just a reduction of feeling, a slow withdrawal of the senses from the periphery of the body. The mind of the sentry drifts, untethered by the need for conversation or action. It floats over the landscape of memory and duty. There is the memory of the mess hall, the smell of lentil stew and stale wine, the warmth of the fire pit where men sat and repaired their kit. There is the anticipation of the end of the watch, the moment when the relief will come, the exchange of passwords, the walk back to the turret, the removing of the heavy helmet. But these thoughts are distant, muffled by the immediate reality of the cold. The present moment is expansive. It stretches out, elongating each second. Time does not flow here, it pools. It collects in the hollows of the night, deep and still. Far in the distance to the north, the landscape rises into a series of jagged hills. In the daylight, they are brown and purple with heather. Now they are merely silhouettes, two-dimensional cutouts against the dark sky. They look like the backs of sleeping giants, ancient and immovable. Between the wall and those hills lies the void, a land of bog and scrub, of hidden streams and rocky outcrops. It is a land that refuses to be tamed. The Romans have built roads, straight and true, piercing the heart of the province, but here, beyond the wall, the paths are winding and treacherous, known only to the deer and the wolf and the people who paint their skin with the colors of the earth. The sentry knows they are out there, somewhere in the vastness, but tonight they are ghosts, unseen and unheard. The wall is not under attack. It is merely being tested by the elements. The wind picks up, a sudden gust that buffets the sentry, pushing against the large, curved scutum shield that leans against the parapet. The shield is heavy, made of layers of wood glued together, covered in leather and linen, rimmed with brass. It is painted a dull red, with the lightning bolts of the legion stylized in yellow, though the colors are drained by the night. The boss in the center is a heavy iron hemisphere, cold and unyielding. The shield scrapes slightly against the stone, a harsh, grinding noise that is quickly swallowed by the wind. The sentry adjusts his cloak, pulling it tighter around the shoulders, tucking the chin down into the folds of the wool. The wool scratches the skin, a rough, itchy sensation that is oddly grounding. It smells of lanolin and smoke, the scent of the barracks. Rain begins to fall. It is not a heavy downpour, but a fine, driving mist that hangs in the air and coats everything in a sheen of moisture. It catches the light of the lantern, turning the air into a shimmering veil of silver droplets. The sound of the rain is a soft hiss, a whisper that overlays the moan of the wind. It patters against the helmet, a random, staccato rhythm of tiny impacts. It runs down the nose guard, dripping off the end. It soaks into the cloak, making it heavier still. The wood of the walkway becomes darker, slicker. The stone of the wall turns black as it wets, reflecting the weak light in smeared, distorted streaks. The world is becoming liquid, dissolving into a cold, wet gray. The sensation of the cold is a physical weight. It presses down on the helmet, sits on the shoulders, hangs from the hands. The fingers wrapped around the shaft of the pilum are stiff. The wood of the spear shaft is smooth, polished by years of handling, but it is cold to the touch. The metal tip points upward, a sharp finger of iron indicating the sky. The sentry shifts his grip, opening and closing the hand inside the glove to keep the blood moving. The leather of the glove creaks softly. It is a small movement, the only movement for a long time. The body is a furnace, burning fuel to keep the core warm, fighting a silent battle against the thermodynamics of the night. The heat radiates out and is stolen by the wind, carried away to the north, lost forever. Looking down from the wall, the ditch below is a pool of absolute blackness. It is deep and V-shaped, a scar in the earth designed to break the momentum of a charge. Now it collects the shadows. It is a void within a void. The sentry knows the dimensions of it, has walked it during drills, has cleared the weeds from its bottom. But in the dark, it feels bottomless. It is a reminder of the height of the wall. To fall would be to vanish. The security of the walkway is a narrow strip of civilized space suspended above the wild earth. The railing on the rear side is sturdy, timber beams lashed together, but the drop on the north side is sheer stone. The visual texture of the scene remains soft, hazy. The colored pencil strokes that define the world are layered, cross-hatched to create the density of the shadow. The blue of the night is not a single color but a composite of indigo, charcoal, and deep violet. The light from the lantern does not cut the dark. It pushes it back gently, creating a gradient of illumination that fades into obscurity. The edges of the soldier's silhouette are fuzzy, blending into the background. He is part of the wall, a gargoyle of flesh and iron perched on the battlements. He is as much a feature of the landscape as the turrets and the Milecastles. The routine of the watch is a cycle of observation. Scan left, scan center, scan right. Listen, wait, repeat. There is no urgency. The barbarians are not coming tonight. The weather is too poor, the night too dark. Tonight is a struggle against the boredom and the cold. The mind seeks patterns in the random noise of the wind. It hears voices in the gusting air, words spoken in a language that does not exist. It sees faces in the drifting mist, pale and fleeting. These are the tricks of sensory deprivation, the mind filling in the blanks of a low-stimulus environment. The sentry knows this. He blinks, clearing the vision, resetting the focus. The faces dissolve back into mist. The voices become the wind once more. The hours pass without markers. There is no clock here, only the slow rotation of the heavens, hidden behind the clouds. The passage of time is measured in the accumulation of cold, in the growing stiffness of the muscles, in the deepening of the puddle of water near the boots. The hunger begins to gnaw, a dull ache in the stomach. It is not a sharp hunger, but a low-level demand for fuel. The body wants bread, wants cheese, wants the thick, sour wine of the ration. It wants to replenish the heat that is being lost to the air, but the meal is hours away. For now, there is only the waiting. In the distance to the east, a signal fire flares briefly from another turret. It is a spark of orange in the vast blue-gray, a pinprick of light that signifies presence. It is not an alarm. It is a check-in, a routine maintenance of the line. The flame flickers, rises, and then settles back down. It is a comfort to see. It means that the line is unbroken. It means that a mile away, another man is standing in the dark, wrapped in wool, watching the same nothingness. It is a connection, a fragile thread of light that binds the legion together across the miles of stone and turf. The sentry watches the distant light until it blurs in his vision, a warm star in a cold sky. The wall follows the contours of the land. It does not plow through the hills, it rides them. It dips into the gaps and climbs the crags, a serpentine structure that adapts to the geography while dominating it. From this vantage point, looking along the line of the wall, one can sense the undulation of the terrain. The walkway rises and falls, a stone path that mimics the rolling of the sea. In the dark, the perspective is flattened. The distant sections of the wall look like stacked layers of gray paper, receding into the gloom. The sense of scale is immense. The wall goes on for days of marching. It spans the width of the island. It is a project of such magnitude that it is almost impossible to comprehend while standing on a single section of it. It is a monument to persistence. The rain changes again, turning to sleet as the temperature drops further. The tiny pellets of ice bounce off the stone, making a clicking sound like thousands of tiny insects landing on the pavement. They gather in the crevices of the armor and the folds of the cloak, turning into slush. The cold becomes sharper, more biting. It attacks the exposed skin of the face, stinging the cheeks and the nose. The sentry pulls the scarf higher, covering the mouth and nose, leaving only the eyes exposed. The breath is now trapped within the wool, creating a small pocket of warm, moist air. It is a localized microclimate, a tiny refuge of warmth. But the moisture soon turns cold, making the wool damp against the skin. It is a constant trade-off, a negotiation with discomfort. The wind shifts direction, coming now more from the east, sweeping along the length of the wall. It carries the smell of the sea, the salt tang of the ocean that lies miles away. It mixes with the smell of the wet stone and the burning oil of the lantern. The flame in the housing dances wildly, casting erratic shadows that jump and twist on the walkway. The light pulses, dimming and brightening in a chaotic rhythm. The sentry shields the eyes slightly, looking away from the light to preserve night vision. The darkness beyond the wall seems to press closer, emboldened by the flickering of the lamp. The shadows in the ditch deepen, becoming solid objects of black. Under the boots, the wood of the tower walkway vibrates slightly with the force of the wind hitting the structure. The tower is solid, built of thick timbers and stone, but it is not immune to the power of the gale. It creaks, a low groan of wood under stress. It is a reassuring sound, the sound of something that bends but does not break. The structure is alive in its own way, reacting to the forces applied to it. The sentry leans back against the wall of the turret, seeking a momentary respite from the wind. The stone of the turret provides a windbreak, a small zone of relative calm. The roar of the wind is muffled here, though still present. The relief is immediate, the pressure on the body lessening. But the duty requires observation. He cannot stay in the shelter. He pushes off the wall, stepping back out into the full force of the airstream. The visual field is a study in textures. The rough weave of the wool cloak, fibers magnified by the mental focus. The pitted surface of the iron helmet, scarred by use and corrosion. The smooth, wet leather of the shield cover. The grainy, porous nature of the sandstone blocks. The slick, fibrous grain of the wooden planks. The soft, diffuse, undefined nature of the mist. Everything has a tactile quality that can be felt with the eyes. The drawing of this scene would use heavy pressure on the paper to create the darks, and light, feathery strokes for the mist and the rain. The lantern light would be the only area of warm color, a blend of ochre and burnt sienna, fading rapidly into the cool grays and blues. The solitude is absolute. Even with the knowledge of the other men in the turret below, sleeping or playing dice, the sentry is alone with the night. The separation is physical and mental. Up here on the wall there is no society. There is only the watcher and the watched, the boundary, the limit. The mind turns inward, exploring the landscape of boredom. It replays old conversations. It counts the beats of the heart. It traces the geometry of the constellations that are hidden behind the clouds. It is a meditative state, induced by the lack of stimuli and the rhythmic repetition of the environment. The boredom is not a negative thing. It is a protective layer. It keeps the mind from racing, from panicking at the size of the dark. It slows the metabolism, aligns the man with the stone. A bird calls out from the darkness, a harsh, croaking sound that startles the air. A raven, perhaps, or a crow disturbed from its roost. The sound is ugly and flat, lacking the melody of the day birds. It echoes briefly against the wall and then is gone. The sentry does not react visibly, but the muscles tense for a second under the armor. The eyes dart to the source of the sound, seeing nothing but the black void. The bird is a reminder that there is life out there, hidden and watching. The scavengers are waiting. They know the wall as well as the soldiers do. They know it as a place of scraps and occasionally of death. But tonight, there is only the rain. The sleet intensifies, accumulating on the shoulders of the cloak in a thin layer of white slush. The weight increases. The sentry shakes the shoulders, a shrug that dislodges the ice, sending it cascading down to the walkway. It is a small maintenance of the self, a refusal to be buried. The cold is insidious. It tries to make the body still to slow the movements until they stop. The soldier must fight this urge. He taps the butt of the spear against the deck. 1, 2, 3. The vibration travels up the arm, a dull shock that confirms the limb is still there, still functioning. He wiggles the toes inside the boots. He flexes the calves. The blood must flow. The vigil must continue. The lantern flickers, the oil running low or the wick needing a trim. The light dims, turning the world into a deeper shade of blue. The contrast drops. The definition of the stones is lost, merging into a single dark mass. The sentry glances at the lamp. It will need tending soon, but not yet. It has enough life for another hour. He trusts the equipment. It is Roman equipment built to standard, built to last. Like the wall, like the empire. It may sputter, it may flicker, but it does not go out. Not easily. The light is a symbol. As long as the light burns, the watch is kept. The wind moans a low, mournful note as it passes over the curved tiles of the turret roof. It sounds like a voice sighing in resignation. It is the sound of the north, a sound of emptiness and space. The sentry listens to it, letting it wash over him. He is a stone in the river of the wind. He does not oppose it, he endures it. He lets it flow around him, diverting his profile to minimize the resistance. He has become aerodynamic by necessity. The cloak is wrapped tight, presenting a smooth surface. The shield is angled, the posture is hunched. He is adapted to the environment, a creature of the wall. And so the night deepens. The darkness becomes total save for the pool of amber light. The cold settles into the stones, into the wood, into the flesh. The world is reduced to the basics: wind, rain, stone, dark. The sentry stands, the wall waits. The cycle continues minute by minute, hour by hour in the slow, grinding eternity of the frontier. The breath comes and goes, a white rhythm in the black air. The heart beats, a slow drum in the silence. The vigil is silent, boring, and endless. This is the reality of the Legion. Not the glory of the charge, but the endurance of the watch, the guarding of the line, the standing in the cold while the rest of the world sleeps. The visual field blurs slightly as the eyes grow heavy. The pastel strokes of the world soften further. The sharp lines of the masonry become fuzzy. The light of the lantern blooms, creating a halo of warmth in the cool visual field. The sentry blinks, forcing clarity, but the softness remains. It is the texture of fatigue, the texture of the sleep that waits at the end of the shift. But the shift is not over. The night is long. The wind is cold, and the wall stands. The night does not move forward so much as it settles deeper into the earth, a heavy sediment of darkness accumulating in the valleys and the hollows of the landscape. The passage of time is no longer measured by the sun or the moon, both hidden behind the thick, impenetrable curtain of the cloud layer, but by the slow, creeping transformation of the moisture on the stones. The wet sheen that had coated the basalt blocks of the wall an hour ago is beginning to change. The temperature has slipped past the critical threshold, dropping silently into the realm of freezing. The water, previously a fluid reflecting slick of gray, is now stiffening, crystallizing into delicate, fern-like patterns of frost. It happens slowly, a microscopic colonization of the stone by the ice. The edges of the puddles on the walkway lose their fluidity, turning opaque and brittle. The world is hardening, locking itself into a rigid, frozen posture for the duration of the darkness. The sentry watches this transformation with a detached, hypnotic interest. It is the only theater available. The light of the lantern, still hanging faithfully on its post, catches the newborn crystals. They sparkle with a faint, diamond dust glitter, tiny points of sharp light in the overwhelming gloom. The light is not strong enough to reveal the whole extent of the frost, but it highlights the ridges and the imperfections of the masonry, now outlined in white. The scene is rendered in the soft, dusty texture of cold pastels. The deep blues of the shadows are now rimmed with lines of pale, ghostly silver. The charcoal gray of the wall is speckled with the white of the ice. It is a sketch in high contrast, but the edges remain blurred, softened by the ever-present mist that refuses to clear. The wind has steadied. It no longer gusts with the erratic violence of the earlier evening, but has settled into a constant, droning stream of air flowing from the northwest. It is a solid wall of cold that pushes against the leather and the wool without cessation. It creates a low, monophonic hum as it passes over the edge of the crenellations, a sound that is so constant it eventually disappears from the conscious hearing, becoming a foundational layer of silence. The sentry leans into it slightly, letting the wind support a fraction of his weight. The shield, the scutum, acts as a windbreak for the lower body, diverting the stream around the legs. Behind the shield, in the small pocket of dead air, there is a relative calm, though no warmth. The cold permeates everything. It travels through the wood of the shield, through the tunic, through the skin. It is an ambient pressure, trying to equalize the temperature of the living flesh with the temperature of the frozen stone. Inside the helmet, the sound of the wind is amplified, a rushing noise like the sea held in a shell. The metal of the cheek guards presses against the jaw, cold and hard. The padding inside has compressed over the hours, losing some of its loft, bringing the iron closer to the bone. The sentry adjusts the fit, a microscopic shifting of the head to relieve a pressure point above the ear. The movement causes the helmet to scrape against the mail collar of the subarmales, a gritty, metallic rasp that sounds incredibly loud in the isolation of the watch. The sound dies instantly, swallowed by the wind. The silence returns, heavy and expectant. Below the wall to the south, the fort lies in a deep, comatose slumber. It is a grid of shadows, the straight lines of the barracks and the storehouses barely visible against the dark ground. There are no lights down there. The fires have been banked, buried under ash to save the fuel. The men are asleep, wrapped in their blankets, huddled together for warmth in the wooden bunks. The sentry imagines the sound of their breathing, a collective rhythm of rest. He imagines the smell of the straw mattresses, the dry, dusty smell of the granaries, the sharp tang of the stables where the horses shift and stomp in their stalls. It is a world of warmth and enclosure, separated from him by 20 feet of vertical stone and the rigid duty of the roster. He does not resent the sleepers. He is simply the one who is awake. His time to sleep will come, and another will stand here, watching the frost grow. The visual focus shifts to the immediate foreground, the hands. They are encased in thick leather gloves, the fingers curled loosely. The leather is old, stained dark by oil and weather, cracking at the knuckles where the flexion is most frequent. The cold has stiffened the material, making it feel like wood. The sentry flexes the fingers of the right hand, watching the leather wrinkle and smooth out. It is a slow motion performed underwater. The sensation in the fingertips is dull, distant. He rubs the thumb against the forefinger, feeling the texture of the glove rather than the touch itself. The connection to the physical world is being mediated by layers of insulation, muted and dampened. He looks at the lantern again. The flame is a small, captive spirit. It feeds on the oil in the reservoir, drawing it up through the wick, transforming the liquid into heat and light. The glass of the lantern panes is thick and flawed, filled with bubbles and waves that distort the view of the burning wick. The glass is stained with soot near the top, a gradient of black fading into transparency. The light it casts is amber, the color of old honey. It struggles against the blue of the night, carving out a sphere of influence that is perhaps 3 paces across. Beyond that sphere, the darkness is absolute. The transition from light to dark is not abrupt but gradual, a fading away of color and detail until there is nothing but the suggestion of shapes. The wooden post that holds the lantern is weathered, the grain raised and silvered by exposure. A single iron nail holds the bracket, rust weeping down the wood in a dark stain. These small details occupy the mind. They are the anchors that keep the consciousness from drifting away into the void. The mind of the soldier is a quiet place tonight. There are no grand thoughts of strategy or politics. There is only the sensory input of the moment, the feeling of the wool scratching the neck, the taste of the cold air, metallic and clean, the ache in the lower back from standing on the hard surface. The thoughts loop and repeat, matching the repetitive nature of the wind. He thinks of the stew he ate earlier. He thinks of the boots he will take off later. He thinks of the stone under his feet. The thoughts are slow, viscous, moving like honey in the cold. There is no anxiety. The fear of the enemy is distant. The enemy tonight is the environment, and it is a slow, patient enemy. To the north, the landscape is a canvas of varying densities of black. The hills are darker shapes against the dark sky. The bog is a flat, matte blackness. Occasionally, the wind moves the clouds enough to allow a faint, diffused light from the hidden moon to touch the land. When this happens, the wet heather gleams with a dull, silver light, like the back of a sleeping fish. The reflection is fleeting, gone as soon as the clouds close again. It gives the impression that the land itself is breathing, rising and falling in the dark. The sentry scans this emptiness. His eyes are trained to see movement, but everything is moving. The grass waves, the bushes shudder, the mist swirls. He must distinguish between the movement of the wind and the movement of a man. It is a skill born of long hours, a pattern recognition that operates below the level of conscious thought. He watches a patch of scrub for a long time. It moves. It stops. It moves again. It is just the wind. He exhales, a cloud of white vapor obscuring his vision for a moment. The vapor of the breath is a constant companion. It is the only thing he produces. It rises rhythmically, a plume of white that catches the lantern light, swirling into turbulent eddies before dissolving. It is warm for a fraction of a second, a fleeting heat that brushes the tip of the nose before vanishing. The condensation from the breath freezes on the scarf, creating a crust of ice where the wool meets the mouth. It is uncomfortable, a wet, cold abrasive against the sensitive skin of the lips. He pulls the scarf down for a moment, exposing the face to the raw air to wipe the ice away with the back of the glove. The cold air hits the wet skin like a slap, sharp and shocking. He quickly replaces the scarf, burying the face back into the wool. The brief exposure serves to wake him up, a splash of cold water to the senses. The silence of the large stone blocks is profound. They are ancient, cut from the earth millions of years ago, shaped by men and placed here to endure. They do not vibrate with the wind. They absorb the cold without complaint. They are the definition of stability. The sentry places a hand on the parapet stone. Even through the glove, he can feel the solidity of it. It is an immovable object. He is a transient being, a flicker of life standing on a geological timeline. The wall will be here when he is dust. It will be here when the empire is a memory. This thought is not depressing. It is grounding. It puts the long, cold night into perspective. It is just one night in the life of the stone. A fine, granular snow begins to fall. It is not the soft, flaky snow of the deep winter, but small, hard pellets of ice, distinct and dry. They click as they hit the helmet and the shoulder plates of the larica. They bounce off the stone walkway, skittering across the frozen puddles like tiny marbles. They accumulate in the crevices of the armor, white lines defining the overlapping plates of iron. The sound is a soft, continuous hiss, like sand being poured onto metal. The visual field becomes grainy, filled with the falling white specks. The lantern light illuminates the falling snow, turning the air into a column of descending sparks. The snow adds a new texture to the night, a dry, abrasive quality. It collects on the eyelashes, forcing the sentry to blink more frequently. Each blink is a shutter closing and opening on the same scene, a stop-motion film of endurance. The weight of the equipment is a constant arithmetic. The helmet, 4 pounds, the armor, 20 pounds, the shield, 22 pounds, the sword, the dagger, the belt, the cloak, the boots. It adds up to a burden that the body has grown around. The muscles of the neck are thick, conditioned to the weight of the iron. The shoulders are broad, shaped by the pressure of the larica. The soldier does not fight the weight, he stacks it. He aligns his skeletal structure so that the bones do the work, the spine a column supporting the load. He leans slightly forward, counterbalancing the shield on his back. It is a posture of rest within readiness. If he were to relax too much, the weight would topple him. If he tenses too much, he will burn energy. He finds the balance point, the 0 point of exertion, and resides there. The walkway is narrow, a path of timber laid over the rubble core of the wall. The wood is oak, darkened by age and preservatives. The grain is raised, rough ridges that provide traction. The snow is beginning to fill the valleys between the ridges of the grain, creating a pattern of white stripes on the black wood. The sentry shifts his feet, grinding the ice pellets into the wood. The sound is a crunch, distinct and crisp. He turns slowly, walking 10 paces to the east, then stopping. He turns and walks 10 paces back to the west. It is a cage pacing, a way to keep the blood from pooling in the legs. The movement changes the view slightly, revealing different shadows, different angles of the same emptiness. The rhythm of the steps is slow. Thud, 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 pause, turn, thud, thud, thud. As he walks, the scabbard of the gladius swings slightly, tapping against the hip. The sword is short, efficient, a tool for close work. It is sheathed in wood and leather, the handle made of bone. The bone handle is cold, polished smooth by the grip of many hands. It is a comforting weight on the right side. On the left hangs the pugio, the dagger, a smaller, sharper reassurance. These are the tools of his trade, currently dormant. They are cold pieces of metal, waiting for a heat that is not present tonight. The sentry rests his hand on the pommel of the sword, a habitual gesture. The bone is smooth under the glove. It is a connection to the purpose of his presence. He is not just a watcher, he is a weapon. But tonight, he is a weapon left out in the rain, slowly rusting in the damp air. The mist thickens, rolling in from the north like a slow tide. It swallows the distant hills completely, erasing the horizon. Now the world ends 100 yards from the wall. The mist is gray and luminous, catching the scattered light of the hidden moon. It swirls around the base of the wall, filling the ditch, rising up the stone face. It feels as though the wall is a ship sailing through a sea of cloud. The sensation of isolation increases. The rest of the world has been deleted. There is only this section of the wall, this lantern, this soldier. The mist dampens the sound of the wind, muffling it to a soft whisper. The world feels smaller, more intimate and colder. The dampness of the mist penetrates deeper than the dry snow. It finds the gaps in the scarf, the seams in the armor. It smells of ozone and wet earth. The sentry leans over the parapet, looking down into the fog. It is a swirling, chaotic soup of gray vapor. He cannot see the bottom of the ditch anymore. He is staring into a cloud. It is disorienting. If he were to fall, he would fall into nothingness. He pulls back, reorienting himself with the solid geometry of the walkway. The straight lines of the timber and the stone are the only truth. The mist is a deception. He focuses on the lantern again, the beacon in the gray. The flame is steady, burning the oil with a quiet determination. He watches a drop of condensation run down the outside of the glass pane. It tracks a jagged path through the soot, refracting the light, a tiny, moving jewel. It reaches the bottom frame and hangs there, a heavy tear before falling into the dark. Time stretches. The interval between heartbeats seems to lengthen. The sentry closes his eyes for a second just to relieve the strain of staring into the dark. Behind the eyelids there is a kaleidoscope of phosphenes, vague colors swirling in the dark. Blue, purple, faint orange. It is the brain creating its own entertainment. He opens his eyes. The gray world returns. The snow continues to fall. The wind continues to blow. Nothing has changed, and yet everything is older. The night is a long, flat road that must be walked 1 second at a time. He remembers a time before the wall, a childhood in a warmer province. He remembers the sun on a white stucco wall, the smell of thyme and dust, the sound of cicadas buzzing in the heat. The memory is vivid, sharp with color and warmth. It stands in stark contrast to the blue-gray reality of the present. He holds the memory for a moment, letting it warm his mind before letting it go. It is dangerous to dwell too long on the warmth. It makes the cold harder to bear. He pushes the sun away and embraces the ice. He accepts the numbness of the toes, the stiffness of the fingers. He becomes the cold. The structure of the turret behind him is a looming shadow. The door is shut, a heavy plank barrier against the wind. Inside there is a small fire perhaps, or at least the warmth of other bodies. But that is a different world. The sentry does not look at the door. He looks north. That is the discipline. The back is turned to the comfort. The face is turned to the threat. The discipline is a rigid lattice that holds the man together when the will begins to fail. It is drilled into the muscles, into the spine. Stand, watch, wait, endure. The snow begins to stick to the wood of the walkway, creating a thin, treacherous carpet of white. The traction is reduced. The sentry moves more carefully now, placing the boots flat to avoid slipping. The hobnails crunch into the ice. The sound is sharper now, echoing slightly off the wet stones. The white layer reflects the lantern light, brightening the immediate area. The scene shifts from a dark, muddy drawing to a high-contrast etching. The black of the shadows is deeper, the white of the snow brighter. The mid-tones are disappearing. The world is becoming binary. Black and white, stone and snow, night and cold. A sudden draft causes the lantern to flare. The flame jumps, sending wild, stretching shadows racing across the wall. The shadows of the crenellations elongate, reaching out over the walkway like dark fingers, then snap back as the flame settles. It is a moment of visual violence in a still landscape. The sentry tenses, the hand tightening on the spear. The eyes sweep the perimeter. Nothing, just the wind playing tricks with the fire. The heart rate spikes for a moment, then slows again. Thump, thump. Thump, thump. The adrenaline fades, leaving a cold wash in the veins. The boredom returns, heavier than before. The solitude is a physical sensation, a vast empty space surrounding the body. The soldier is a singular point of consciousness in a universe of inanimate matter. The stone does not think. The snow does not feel. The wind does not care. He is the only thing that experiences the night. He bears witness to the cold. If he were not here, the wind would still blow, the snow would still fall, the frost would still form. But it would happen in the dark, unobserved. His presence gives the night a reality. He is the recorder of the silence. The hem of the cloak is frozen hard now. It knocks against the greaves of the armor with a dull, wooden sound. The wool has lost its flexibility. It is a rigid shell. The sentry tries to wrap it tighter, but the fabric resists. It has taken a shape and wants to keep it. He leaves it be. The stillness is easier than the struggle. He sinks deeper into the standing meditation. The eyes remain open, the ears remain alert, but the self recedes. He is merely a component of the wall, a biological sensor plugged into the stone architecture. He is the eyes of the empire, staring into the dark, watching the snow fall on the edge of the world. The quality of the silence changes as the snow begins to fall in earnest. Before, the night was filled with the hiss of the wind and the sharp, staccato clicking of the sleet against the stone, a soundscape of friction and impact. Now, the atmosphere thickens, becoming a dampening medium that absorbs sound rather than transmitting it. The large, heavy flakes descend not with a noise, but with a presence, filling the air between the wall and the sky with millions of drifting obstacles. The wind, which had been a driving force, seems to lose its momentum, tangled in the falling white curtain. It slows to a sluggish breeze, swirling the flakes in lazy, vertical spirals before letting them settle gently onto the world below. The roar of the north is replaced by a profound, muffled quiet, a silence that feels padded and insulated, wrapping the century in a cocoon of soft, cold matter. Visually, the scene shifts from the stark, high-contrast etching of the previous hour to a softer, more diffuse composition. The deep charcoal of the night is now filtered through a veil of falling gray and white. The lantern light does not penetrate far. It is caught and scattered by the density of the snowfall, creating a glowing orb of hazy amber illumination that surrounds the post. Inside this orb, the individual snowflakes are visible for a brief moment, distinct, complex crystal structures tumbling through the light, before they pass into the shadow or land on a surface. They land on the wooden railing, on the stone merlons, on the shoulders of the sentry. They stack upon one another, interlocking their delicate arms to form a coherent layer of white that grows thicker with every passing minute. The sharp edges of the Roman engineering are being erased. The square blocks of the wall are becoming rounded mounds. The straight line of the walkway is softening into an undulating path of snow. The sentry stands within this accumulating quiet. He has ceased the pacing. The risk of slipping on the fresh, packing snow is too great, and the energy required to lift the heavy boots through the drift is better conserved. He stands near the center of the walkway, boots planted wide, weight evenly distributed. The snow gathers on him as if he were a statue forgotten in a garden. It piles up on the dome of the helmet, creating a white cap that grows taller by the inch. It settles on the ridges of the shoulder armor, filling the gaps between the metal plates. It clings to the rough wool of the cloak, turning the dark rust color into a textured white. He does not brush it off. To move is to break the seal of warm air, however faint, that has formed between the layers of clothing. To move is to invite the fresh cold in. So he remains still, letting the environment claim him, letting the snow bury him slowly. The sensation of the cold has changed character again. It is no longer a sharp, biting attack on the skin. The numbness in the extremities has stabilized into a dull, absent sensation. The fingers inside the leather gloves feel distant, thick, and clumsy, as if they belong to someone else. The toes are silent blocks of wood at the end of the feet. The cold has moved inward, a slow seepage that chills the blood in the veins. It feels as though the core of the body is slowly dimming, the internal furnace banking its fires to preserve the last embers. The breath is shallow and slow. The steam it produces is thicker now in the cold air, a dense white fog that hangs in front of the face for a moment before merging with the falling snow. Every exhalation is a surrender of heat. Every inhalation is an intake of ice. The view to the north is now a wall of white. The distant hills, the bog, the horizon, all are gone. There is no depth perception. There is only the swirling chaos of the snow in the immediate foreground and the flat, gray void beyond. It is a form of blindness. The eyes strain to find a focal point, some dark shape to anchor the vision, but there is nothing. The visual field is a uniform texture of falling static. It is hypnotic. The constant downward motion of the flakes drags the eyes down, drags the eyelids down. It is a visual lullaby, a rhythmic, repetitive motion that signals the brain to sleep. The sentry fights this. He blinks hard, shaking the head slightly. The ice on the helmet rattles. He forces the eyes to widen, to scan left, to scan right, even though there is nothing to see but the weather. The lantern struggles. The ventilation holes in the metal housing are becoming clogged with snow. The oxygen supply to the flame is restricted. The light dims, pulsing slowly as the flame gasps for air. The sentry observes this. He knows he must clear the vents. It is a small task, a break in the stillness. He waits for a count of 10 beats of his heart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then he moves. The movement is stiff, hydraulic. The arm lifts, the ice cracking on the elbow of the cloak. The glove reaches out. The fingers brush the snow away from the top of the lantern. The metal is hot to the touch, a shocking contrast to the frozen world. The snow sizzles faintly as it touches the hot iron, turning to steam. The vents clear. The flame breathes. The light strengthens, pushing the shadows back a few inches. The hand returns to the side. The stillness resumes. The snow on the walkway dampens the vibration of the structure. The wooden planks no longer creak. The world feels solid, muffled, and heavy. The smell of the air is pure and clean. It smells of absolutely nothing, no earth, no smoke, no rot, just the neutral, sterile scent of frozen water. It is a smell that cleanses the sinuses, a sharp, empty clarity. The sentry tastes the air with his tongue, catching a falling snowflake. It melts instantly, a tiny spark of cold water on the warmth of the tongue. It is the taste of the sky. The mind drifts to the concept of the legion. A legion is a machine of 5,000 men. It is a beast of iron and leather and discipline. But here, on the wall, the legion is atomized. It is broken down into single units, spaced out along the miles of stone. The sentry feels the weight of the separation. He is a singular component, disconnected from the main body. The orders given at the headquarters miles away filter down through the centurions, the optios, the tessellaries, until they reach him as a simple directive: stand, watch, do not sleep. The complexity of the empire is reduced to this binary state: awake or asleep, alive or dead, guarding or failing. The fabric of the saga cloak is heavy with moisture. The snow melts slightly from the body heat escaping through the wool, then refreezes near the surface, creating a crust. The cloak becomes a hard shell, a carapace. It weighs down on the trapezoid muscles of the shoulders, a constant dragging pressure. The strap of the shield cuts into the shoulder, despite the padding. The sentry shifts the weight, leaning the rim of the shield against the stone parapet. The metal rim makes no sound. The stone is covered in a thick cushion of snow. The shield sinks into the white mound, leaving a curved impression. The wood of the shield is contracting in the cold, the leather facing pulling tight. It is a barrier, a wall within a wall. Under the feet, the snow is compacting into ice. The heat from the soles of the boots, however faint, melts the bottom layer of the snow, which then freezes against the wood. It creates a treacherous, slick surface. The hobnails of the caligy bite into it, but the grip is precarious. The sentry is aware of his center of gravity. He keeps it low, knees slightly bent, ready to catch a slip. The muscles of the legs are in a constant state of micro-tension, adjusting to the minute shifts in balance. This static exertion burns energy, burning the reserves of the evening meal. The stomach is empty. The hunger is a cold, hollow space beneath the ribs. The passage of time feels circular. The snow falls, covers the stone, covers the man. The man clears the view, shifts the weight, watches the snow fall. There is no linear progression, no sense of getting closer to dawn. The night seems to have expanded, pushing the dawn back into an indefinite future. The darkness is a permanent state. The sentry imagines the sun. He tries to visualize the color yellow, the sensation of heat on the back of the neck. It is difficult. The memory is desaturated, overlaid by the gray of the present. The reality of the cold is too strong. It overwrites the imagination. A clump of snow falls from the roof of the turret behind him. It lands on the walkway with a soft whump, a dull thud that vibrates through the planks. The sentry does not turn. He knows what it is. The gravity of the earth asserting itself on the accumulated burden of the roof. It is a reminder that the snow is heavy, that it has mass. If it continues to fall like this, the drifts will be knee-deep by morning. The relief guard will have to dig their way out of the turret. The path along the wall will have to be cleared with shovels. The war against the enemy is secondary to the war against the elements. The shovel is as important as the gladius. The texture of the stone wall, where it is still visible on the vertical face, is changing. The wind drives the snow into the cracks and the pitting of the sandstone. The rough, gray surface is being smoothed out, plastered over with white. The wall is losing its texture, becoming a smooth, blank surface. It looks less like a construction of men and more like a natural formation, an ice cliff rising from the earth. The mortar lines are gone. The distinction between the blocks is gone. It is a monolith of cold. The sentry's breath catches in the throat. A cough builds in the chest, a tickle of irritation from the dry, cold air. He suppresses it. To cough is to convulse, to shake the body, to break the stillness. It is loud. He swallows hard, forcing the irritation down. The throat is dry, raw. He longs for a drink of pasca, the sour water and vinegar mixture that cuts the thirst. But the flask is frozen, or if not frozen, too cold to drink comfortably. He waits for the urge to cough to pass. It subsides slowly, leaving a watering in the eyes. He blinks the tears away. They feel hot on the cold skin of the cheeks, then instantly cold as they run down into the beard and the scarf. The silence is so deep that the sentry can hear the sound of his own blood. It is a rushing sound in the ears, a rhythmic whoosh-whoosh that syncs with the slow thud of the heart. It is the sound of the life support system working to keep the machine running. It is a lonely sound. It emphasizes the isolation. There is only this internal rhythm in a world of static silence. He focuses on it, using it as a metronome to measure the time. 60 beats, a minute, perhaps. Or perhaps the heart has slowed, preserving energy. Perhaps a minute is now 80 beats, or 50. The absolute reference frame is lost. He looks at the hand resting on the pommel of the sword. The snow has covered the glove, creating a white mound on top of the hand. He flexes the fingers beneath the snow. The white mound cracks, fissures opening in the miniature landscape of ice. Flakes fall into the cracks. He stops moving. The snow begins to fill the cracks again. It is a small cycle of destruction and repair. The nature of the snow is to cover, to hide, to smooth over. It is an eraser. It wants to erase the soldier from the wall. The visual style of the moment is monochrome. If one were to draw it, the paper would be covered in heavy layers of white pastel, smudged and blended to create the fog. The darks would be the deep gray of the iron and the wool, almost black by contrast. The lantern would be a smear of ochre, a stain on the white. The lines would be soft, no hard edges anywhere. The composition is heavy on the bottom, weighed down by the snow, fading into lightness at the top where the sky meets the falling flakes. It is a picture of heaviness, of a burden being borne in silence. The wind shifts again, a subtle turning of the air. It begins to swirl in the lee of the wall, creating eddies of snow that rise up from the walkway like ghosts. They spiral upwards, dancing in the lantern light before collapsing back down. The sentry watches these phantom shapes. They look like figures twisting and turning. For a moment, the mind supplies a narrative, spirits of the dead, ancestors, enemies. But the discipline holds. They are just vortices of air and ice. Physics, not metaphysics. He watches them dissipate. The cold conducts through the soles of the boots. The layers of leather and hobnails are conductive bridges between the ice and the flesh. The sentry tries to curl his toes to create a pocket of air inside the boot. The movement is stiff. The leather is hard. The wool socks are damp with sweat that has now cooled. The feet are the most vulnerable point. If the feet freeze, the man is finished. He shifts his weight to the heels, lifting the toes off the wood for a few seconds. Then he rocks forward, lifting the heels. Rock back, rock forward. A slow, imperceptible seesaw motion. It keeps the blood moving. It keeps the feet alive. The mental landscape is flat and gray, matching the physical one. The memories of warmth are becoming harder to access. The mind is occupying the now so completely that the past and future seem theoretical. There is only the sensation of the snow landing on the cheek, the smell of the wet wool, the sound of the blood. This is the sleep formula of the watch. It is a trance state, a hibernation of the higher functions. The philosophy of the Stoics makes sense here. Endure what must be endured. Accept the reality of nature. Do not fight the cold with anger, that is a waste of heat. Fight it with endurance. Be the stone. Somewhere in the darkness of the north, a branch snaps under the weight of the snow. The sound is sharp, a pistol crack that cuts through the muffled silence. The sentry's head snaps to the left. The movement dislodges a cascade of snow from the helmet. He stares into the white void. Was it a branch or a footstep? He listens. The silence rushes back in, heavy and absolute. He holds his breath. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, nothing. The snow continues to fall. The wind continues to whisper. It was likely a tree, giving up a limb to the winter. But the adrenaline surges briefly, a warm flush that is quickly consumed by the cold. He relaxes the shoulders, but the eyes remain fixed on the darkness for a long time. The snow is accumulating on the eyelashes, weighing down the lids. It makes it hard to keep the eyes open. The sentry blinks rapidly, clearing the vision. The world is a blur of white specks. He wipes the eyes with the back of the glove, a clumsy smear that leaves the face wet. The water freezes on the skin. It is a constant maintenance of the senses. The body wants to close the eyes, to curl up, to sleep. The will says no. The will forces the eyes open. The will forces the legs to lock. The will is the commander. The body is the reluctant subordinate. The lantern flame flickers as a large flake manages to fall directly down the chimney. It hisses, a tiny battle between fire and water. The fire wins, but it is weakened. The amber light pulses, casting a wave of shadow across the snow-covered walkway. The shadows of the snow drifts look like dunes in a desert, sculpted by the wind. The landscape of the walkway is alien, a miniature terrain of peaks and valleys formed by the weather. The sentry is a giant standing in this landscape. His boots crush the mountains of snow. His spear casts a shadow like a dark ravine. The breathing becomes a rhythmic chant in the mind. In, cold, out, white, in, cold, out, white. It is a mantra. It occupies the part of the brain that wants to complain, that wants to ask how much longer. It silences the internal monologue. The repetition is soothing. It aligns the man with the cycle of the weather. The snow falls in a rhythm. The breath moves in a rhythm. The heart beats in a rhythm. They are all gears in the same slow clock. The accumulation of snow on the scutum shield is significant now. It covers the red paint, the yellow lightning bolts. It covers the brass rim. The shield is now just a white rectangle, indistinguishable from the wall, indistinguishable from the air. It has been camouflaged by the storm. The sentry realizes that he, too, is camouflaged. To anyone looking from the north, he would be invisible, a white shape against a white wall. He is a ghost guarding a ghost wall. The thought is strangely comforting. If he cannot see them, they cannot see him. They are blind men stumbling in a white room. The cold begins to affect the joints. The knees feel rusty, grinding slightly when he shifts weight. The hips are stiff. The neck is rigid. The synovial fluid, the lubricant of the body, seems to have thickened into paste. Every movement requires a deliberate signal from the brain, a conscious override of the body's desire to rigorize. He rolls the head slowly, left to right. The vertebrae pop, dull clicks that are felt more than heard. The movement pulls on the muscles of the neck, stretching the cold fibers. It feels good, a brief release of tension, followed immediately by the return of the stiffening cold. The sentry looks up for a moment, straight into the falling snow. It is like looking into a warped tunnel, the flakes radiating out from a central point in the sky. It is dizzying. The sense of motion is overwhelming, as if he is falling upwards into the clouds. He feels a moment of vertigo, a loss of connection with the ground. He quickly looks down, grounding himself on the sight of the wooden planks and the iron boots. The sky is too big, too chaotic. The ground is safe. The ground is real. The weight of the silence is physical. It presses on the eardrums. It is not an empty silence. It is a full silence packed with the presence of the snow. It is the silence of a library, of a cathedral, of a tomb. It demands reverence. To speak would be a profanity. To shout would be an act of madness. The sentry remains mute, his lips sealed, his tongue still. He communicates only with the cold in the language of heat exchange. The night wears on. The snow pile at the base of the lantern post grows higher, threatening to bury the bottom of the pole. The light reflects off the snow, creating a diffuse glow that seems to come from the ground itself. The world is upside down, the ground is light, the sky is dark. The sentry stands in the middle, a dark vertical line connecting the two. He is the tether. He is the anchor. He waits. The snow falls. The cold deepens. The duty remains. The accumulation of the snow has now altered the fundamental geometry of the wall. What was once a collection of hard angles, vertical drops, and horizontal planes has been softened into a landscape of continuous flowing curves. The sharp edges of the crenellations, the squared corners of the merlins, and the rigid lines of the walkway are all buried under a thick, uniform blanket of white. The world has lost its definition. It is as if the great stone serpent of the empire is shedding its skin, replacing the gray scales of masonry with a new, temporary skin of ice. The sentry stands in the midst of this transformation, a vertical interruption in the horizontal drift. He has ceased to be a separate entity. He is now a feature of the terrain, a pillar around which the wind sculpts the falling snow. The silence has deepened into something profound and tangible. It is no longer just the absence of noise. It is a heavy, pressurized presence that presses against the eardrums. The snow acts as a perfect acoustic dampener, absorbing the friction of the wind, the distant murmur of the garrison, and the subtle shifts of the earth. The world is wrapped in wool. The only sounds that exist are the ones created by the sentry himself, and even these are muffled, reluctant sounds. The creak of the leather harness as the chest expands for a shallow breath. The soft, crunching compression of the snow under the boots as the weight shifts by a fraction of an inch. The tiny, almost inaudible click of a snowflake landing on the metal rim of the helmet. These microscopic noises are magnified by the isolation, becoming the loud ticking of a biological clock in a room where time has stopped. The lantern, suspended on its hook, is the only source of resistance against the encroaching monochromatic night. Its light has changed quality. The glass panes are now frosted around the edges, narrowing the aperture of the flame. The light that escapes is softer, more diffuse, a hazy, amber nebula that struggles to push back the white tide. It illuminates the falling flakes not as individual crystals, but as streaks of light, a continuous rain of sparks that vanish as soon as they hit the shadow. To the eyes of the watcher, the light is a warm island in a cold sea. It is the only color remaining in the universe. The orange and yellow of the flame are the colors of life, of blood, of the sun, all things that feel impossibly distant. The sentry focuses on the flame. It is a meditative anchor. He watches the way the wick curls slightly as it burns, a tiny, charred finger pointing into the heart of the fire. He watches the level of the oil in the reservoir, a dark, viscous pool that tilts gently with the swaying of the lantern in the breeze. The oil is thick, sluggish with the cold. It moves like molasses. The consumption of the fuel is a slow, chemical countdown. As long as the oil lasts, the light lasts. As long as the light lasts, the watch holds. It is a simple equation, a reduction of duty to the physics of combustion. The cold has penetrated the layers of the subarmales, the padded linen and wool garment worn beneath the armor. It has found the skin. The sensation is no longer one of active freezing, but of a settled, permanent chill. The skin feels tight, drawn across the muscles. The layer of fat beneath the skin has hardened. The body has withdrawn its heat from the surface, pulling it deep into the core to protect the vital organs. The sentry feels this withdrawal. His arms and legs feel heavy, dense, as if the bones have turned to lead. The connection to the hands is remote. He looks at the gloved hand resting on the railing. It looks like a foreign object, a piece of sculpture placed there by someone else. He sends a command to the index finger, lift. There is a delay, a lag in the neural circuit before the finger slowly rises, shaking slightly. Drop. It falls back onto the wood. The machinery is slowing down. The visual aesthetic of the scene is now dominated by the texture of the snow on the dark materials. The deep blue-gray of the cloak is dusted with white powder, like sugar on a dark loaf. The iron of the helmet is matte and dark, absorbing the light, but the snow piled on top of it glows with a soft internal luminescence. The contrast is low, a study in values rather than hues. The shadows are not black, but a deep, bruised purple. The highlights are not white, but a pale, creamy gray. It is a drawing made with a heavy hand, the artist pressing hard on the charcoal to create the density of the night, then using a soft eraser to lift out the shapes of the falling snow. The wind has shifted again, dropping in intensity but changing its angle. It now comes from directly ahead, pushing the snow into the face of the sentry. The flakes catch in the eyelashes, melting instantly and blurring the vision with tears of cold water. They land on the beard, freezing into tiny droplets of ice that weigh down the hair. The sensation of the face is a mask of cold. The nose is numb. The cheeks are stiff parchment. The lips are cracked and dry, tasting of salt and iron. To lick them is to invite the freeze, so they remain pressed together, sealed against the air. Inside the mind, the thoughts have become slow and rhythmic, matching the falling snow. There is no panic, no urgency. The boredom has transcended into a state of trance. The sentry is not thinking about the past or the future. He is not thinking about Rome or the emperor. He is thinking about the texture of the wool. He is thinking about the grain of the wood. He is thinking about the shape of the snowflake that just landed on his thumb. This hyperfocus on the immediate, microscopic details is a defense mechanism. It keeps the mind from expanding into the terrifying vastness of the dark. It keeps the consciousness tethered to the here and now. The weight of the scutum shield is a constant companion. It leans against the hip and the parapet, a heavy rectangle of wood and leather. The snow has drifted against the outer face, burying the lower third of the shield. It is becoming part of the wall. The sentry adjusts his stance, pushing the shield slightly to break the seal of the ice. The sound is a low, tearing noise, like fabric ripping. The movement dislodges a shelf of snow that falls into the darkness of the ditch below. He listens for the sound of its impact. There is none. The ditch is so deep, and the snow down there so soft that the fall is silent. It is as if the snow simply ceased to exist. The hunger has dulled into a persistent, hollow ache. The stomach has shrunk, accepting the emptiness. The body has switched to burning its reserves. The sentry can almost feel the metabolic shift, the slow consumption of the self to maintain the heat. It is a quiet burning, a flameless combustion deep within the tissues. He imagines the meal that awaits him at the end of the shift. A bowl of porridge, perhaps, with a scrap of bacon fat. The thought is abstract. The concept of hot food belongs to a different world, a world of color and sound that is currently inaccessible. Here, there is only the cold menu of the night, ice, wind, and darkness. To the north, the void is absolute. The clouds have lowered, merging with the ground fog to create a solid wall of opacity. There is no horizon, there is no sky. There is only the limit of the lantern's reach. The sentry stares into this white abyss. His eyes play tricks on him. He sees shapes forming in the swirling snow, a darker patch of gray that looks like a wolf, a vertical line that looks like a man standing still. He blinks, and the shapes resolve back into random patterns of falling flakes. It is the pareidolia of the watch, the brain's desperate attempt to find meaning in the chaos. He knows this. He does not raise the alarm. He watches the phantom wolf dissolve into mist. He watches the phantom man drift away on the wind. The walkway underfoot is now a treacherous landscape of packed ice and loose powder. The boots, with their iron hobnails, are the only things providing traction. The metal nails bite into the ice with a satisfying, gritty crunch. Crunch, crunch. The sound travels up the leg bones, a vibration that confirms the solidity of the ground. The sentry tests the grip with each small movement. He does not lift his feet high. He shuffles, sliding the boots along the surface to maintain contact. It is the walk of the elderly, the walk of the infirm, adapted for the preservation of balance on the edge of a precipice. The cold affects the equipment as well. The leather straps of the armor have stiffened, losing their pliability. They dig into the shoulders and the ribs, rigid bands that constrict movement. The metal of the larica plates has contracted slightly, tightening the fit. The sentry feels encased in a shell that is slowly shrinking. The oil on the sword blade has thickened, turning to a waxy paste. If he were to draw the sword now, it would slide out slowly, dragging against the scabbard. But there is no need to draw the sword. The enemy is the weather, and steel is useless against the snow. A bird, disoriented by the storm, flutters into the circle of light. It is a small thing, a sparrow or a finch, a ball of fluffed-up feathers. It lands on the railing, feet from the sentry's hand. It looks at him with a tiny black bead of an eye. It is shivering, the feathers vibrating with the effort to stay warm. The sentry looks at the bird. For a moment, there is a connection between two living things trapped in the freezing void. The bird is an intruder from the world of life, a fragile anomaly. It chirps once, a tiny, pathetic sound, and then launches itself back into the dark, seeking better shelter. The sentry watches it go. He is alone again. The departure of the bird leaves the silence feeling heavier than before. The breath continues its rhythmic cycle. The cloud of vapor is thicker now, a dense white fog that hangs in the still air of the lantern's shelter. The moisture from the breath condenses on the metal of the helmet's brow band, freezing into a jagged line of rime ice. It grows outward, like a crystal fungus, adding weight to the head. The sentry reaches up and breaks the ice away with a gloved thumb. The crystals shatter and fall, tinkling against the breastplate. It is a small act of grooming, a refusal to be completely overgrown by the winter. The snow on the roof of the turret behind him sighs and shifts. A small avalanche slides down the tiles and lands on the walkway with a soft whump. It blocks the path to the door. The sentry notes this. He is cut off. To leave his post, he would have to wade through the drift. But he is not leaving. He is a fixture. He is bolted to the floor by duty and by gravity. The door to the turret might as well be 1,000 miles away. The warmth inside is a rumor, a legend told to children. The reality is the stone and the snow. The passage of time is felt in the knees and the lower back. The standing position is unnatural for the human animal. We are designed to move or to lie down. To stand still is a torture of the skeletal system. The fluids pool in the legs, the discs of the spine compress. The muscles spasm in slow, rhythmic waves of protest. The sentry shifts his weight from the left foot to the right. He unlocks the knees, bends them slightly, then straightens them. The relief is momentary. The ache returns, a dull background noise that cannot be tuned out. He accepts the pain. It is part of the uniform. The visual field begins to pulse slightly, a synchronization with the heartbeat. The edges of the vision darken, vignetting the scene. It is the result of the cold and the fatigue. The brain is conserving power, shutting down the peripheral processing. The sentry widens his eyes, stretching the eyelids. He takes a deep breath, holding the freezing air in the lungs to oxygenate the blood. The vision clears. The vignette recedes. The white world returns in full. He must stay awake. To sleep here is to die. The sleep of the story is for the listener, not the watcher. The watcher must remain on the threshold of sleep, but never cross it. The wind picks up a handful of loose snow from the parapet and throws it into the air. The crystals catch the light, spinning and dancing like diamond dust. For a second, the air is filled with glitter. It is beautiful in a cold, deadly way. The sentry appreciates the beauty without emotion. It is just physics. Light, ice, air. The aesthetic of the frontier is one of stark, brutal elegance. There is no clutter here, no ornamentation, just the raw elements interacting in the dark. He thinks of the stone beneath the snow. The sandstone blocks were quarried from the earth, cut by chisels, hauled by oxen. They contain the sweat of the builders. They contain the fossils of ancient sea creatures trapped in the rock for eons. He is standing on a graveyard of millions of years. The wall is a timeline of the earth. He is just a speck of dust on top of that timeline. The thought makes him feel small, which is comforting. If he is small, his cold is small. His suffering is small. The universe is vast and indifferent, and in that indifference there is a kind of peace. The lantern flickers again. The oil is getting lower. The flame is eating its way down the wick. The light is becoming more orange, deeper in tone. It casts long, distorted shadows that stretch out across the snow. The shadow of the sentry is a giant, looming figure thrown against the white curtain of the storm. It moves when he moves, a dark twin mimicking his actions. He watches his shadow. It is the only other person here. It is a silent companion born of light and obstruction. The wool of the scarf around the neck is wet and cold. The condensation has soaked through. It feels like a cold compress wrapped around the throat. The sentry tries to adjust it to find a dry patch, but the whole garment is compromised. He leaves it. The wet wool is better than the bare skin. It still traps a layer of air, however damp. The smell of the wet wool is strong now, the smell of sheep, of the animal. It reminds him that the cloak was once a living thing, walking on a hill, eating grass. Now it is just a barrier, a dead skin protecting a living one. The silence is broken by the distant, muffled sound of a trumpet from the fort. It is the signal for the changing of the watch. No, it is too early, or is it? Time is slippery, he listens. The sound does not repeat. It was perhaps a ghost sound, a memory of a trumpet, or the wind blowing across a hollow bone. He waits. No relief comes. No footsteps on the wooden stairs. No voice calling the password. It was a phantom. The watch continues. The disappointment is small, barely registered. He did not expect relief. He expects only the snow. The texture of the darkness beyond the lantern's reach is thick and velvety. It looks soft, inviting. It looks like a place where one could lie down and rest. The call of the void is strong tonight. The desire to simply lean over the wall and let go, to fall into the soft black snow of the ditch, is a whispering voice in the back of the head. It is not a suicidal urge, but a desire for cessation, a desire for the end of the effort. The sentry recognizes the voice. It is the voice of the hypothermia. He pushes it away. He grips the railing tighter. The wood is real. The cold is real. The duty is real. The fall is a lie. He begins to count the snowflakes falling through a specific cubic foot of air near the lantern. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is an impossible task. They are infinite, but the counting gives the mind a track to run on. 5, 6, 7. It is a rhythm. 8, 9, 10. The numbers occupy the silence. They are clean, abstract concepts that have no temperature. 11, 12, 13. The snow falls faster. The count cannot keep up. He abandons the numbers and returns to the pure observation of the motion. Down, down, down. Everything is falling. The sky is falling onto the earth. The cold has now reached the marrow. The bones ache with a deep, throbbing rhythm. It is a slow, rhythmic pain that pulses in time with the heart. It is the body's warning system, flashing red lights in the control room. Too cold, too cold. The sentry acknowledges the warning but can do nothing. He cannot build a fire. He cannot run. He can only stand. He tightens the muscles of the thighs, holding the tension for a count of 10, then releasing. The rush of blood is faint, but it is there. A tiny wave of warmth that is instantly swallowed by the vast ocean of the freeze. The visual style is now extremely dark. The drawing has been worked over with layers of black pastel covering the earlier colors. The white of the snow is the only light value left. The sentry is a silhouette, a void in the shape of a man. The lantern is a dying star. The world is closing in, becoming smaller and smaller. The sphere of awareness has shrunk to the body and the few feet of wood around it. The rest of the empire, the rest of the world, has ceased to exist. There is only this man, this wall, and this storm. A sudden vibration runs through the wall, a tremor in the earth, a heavy stone settling deep in the foundation. It is a low-frequency hum that travels up through the soles of the boots. It lasts for a second and is gone. The wall is alive. It settles into the mud, adjusting its weight. It groans under the burden of the snow. The sentry feels a kinship with the structure. They are both bearing the weight. They are both standing against the wind. They are both slowly freezing in the dark. The snow on the walkway is now ankle deep. It has covered the boots completely. The sentry is planted. To move would require breaking the crust that has formed around the legs. He decides to stay put. The snow around the boots acts as insulation, sealing the gaps, blocking the wind. He is rooting himself. He is becoming a tree of iron and wool. The snow piles up against his shins. It is a slow burial. He watches the level rise inch by inch. It is a measurement of the night. When the snow reaches the knees, perhaps the sun will rise, or perhaps not. The mind drifts into a semi-dream state. He sees a fire, a large, roaring fire in a stone hearth. He sees hands reaching out to the warmth. He smells roasting meat. He hears laughter. The vision is vivid, overlaid on the gray reality of the wall. It is a hallucination of comfort. He stares at it, knowing it is not real, but drawing warmth from it anyway. The mind is a powerful engine. It can manufacture heat from memory. He stays in the dream for a moment, letting the phantom fire warm his face. Then the wind gusts, blowing snow into his eyes, and the fire vanishes. The gray returns. The cold returns. The sentry blinks, shaking the head. The movement cracks the ice on the neck scarf. The sound is loud, crack. The reality asserts itself. There is no fire, there is only the lantern. He looks at it with gratitude. It is small, it is weak, but it is real. It is the only friend he has. He watches the flame dance. He watches the snow fall. He waits for the next minute to pass, and the next, and the next. The night is a long, slow river, and he is a stone at the bottom of it. The deep night has arrived, the hour of the wolf, the hour when the spirit of the living is at its lowest ebb and the weight of the darkness is at its crushing peak. The snow continues to fall, not with the furious energy of a storm, but with the relentless, heavy persistence of a geological event. It is burying the world one grain at a time. The walkway of the wall, once a distinct architectural feature, has been transformed into a shallow trough of white, banked on either side by the parapet and the rear railing, which are now merely rounded humps under the accumulation. The sentry stands in this trough, his legs submerged in the drift up to the mid-calf. The snow has packed tight around the greaves of his armor, forming a solid cast of ice that locks him to the spot. He is no longer standing on the wall. He is embedded in it, a structural component fused to the stone by the mortar of the winter. The temperature has dropped to a point where the air itself feels brittle, as if a sudden movement might shatter the atmosphere into razor-sharp shards. Every breath is a labor. The air must be pulled in through the scarf, warmed in the short distance of the throat, and then processed by the lungs, which ache with the chill. The exhalation is a dense cloud that does not dissipate but hangs heavy and low, clinging to the wool of the cloak like a phantom aura. The moisture in the breath freezes instantly upon exiting the warmth of the body, adding to the crust of ice that has formed a mask over the lower half of the sentry's face. The beard is a solid block of white. The mustache is a frozen shelf. The scarf is a rigid collar of ice. The sensation of the face is lost. The skin has retreated into a numb, tingling hibernation, waiting for a dawn that feels an epoch away. Visually, the scene is a study in the degradation of light. The lantern, the sole protagonist of the visual field aside from the falling snow, is failing. The oil in the reservoir has thickened to the consistency of honey, struggling to climb the wick. The flame has shrunk to a small, blue-centered bead of orange light, a weak pulse in the vast black body of the night. It no longer casts a steady glow but shudders and dips, threatening to detach itself from the wick and vanish entirely. The light it throws is feeble, barely reaching the sentry's boots. It illuminates the texture of the snow in the immediate vicinity, the tiny, sharp crystals, the smooth, wind-sculpted curves of the drift, but leaves the rest of the walkway in a deep, impenetrable shadow. The colors are muted to the extreme, the dirty white of the snow, the black of the void, and the faint, dying ember of the lamp. It is a drawing made with a worn-out nub of charcoal and a single, faint stroke of ochre pastel. The sentry watches the dying flame. It is a crisis in slow motion. He knows he must act. He carries a small flask of oil on his belt, a reserve for this exact moment, but the distance between the thought and the action is immense. The mind sends the signal, but the body is slow to receive it. The neural pathways are sluggish with the cold. The muscles are stiff, asleep in their casings of iron and leather. He contemplates the effort required. To move the arm, to find the flask, to open the stopper, to pour the oil. It seems like a sequence of Herculean labors. It would be easier to let the light die, to stand in the dark, to become one with the black silence. But the discipline of the Legion is a deep groove in the brain, deeper than the cold. Let there be light. He begins the movement. It is a glacial shift. First, the right hand must detach itself from the freezing grip it has on the railing. The fingers are curled tight, the leather of the glove frozen to the wood. He pulls. There is a tearing sound loud in the silence as the ice bond breaks. The hand is free. It hovers in the air, a heavy, clumsy claw. He moves it toward the belt. The elbow joint cracks, a dry, popping sound like a stepping on a twig, the shoulder grinding under the weight of the armor. The hand fumbles at the belt, feeling for the shape of the flask. The tactile sense is gone. He feels only pressure, not texture. He finds the hard, round curve of the bronze container. He unhooks it. It feels incredibly heavy, a dense weight of cold metal. Holding the flask, he turns his body toward the lantern. The movement of the legs is restricted by the snow. He has to drag the boots through the drift, plowing a furrow in the white powder. The sound is a soft, shushing noise, shhhshhh, the sound of heavy fabric dragging over sand. He reaches the post. The lantern hangs at eye level. He must lift the glass housing to access the reservoir. There is a small latch, a tiny piece of brass engineering. It is too small for the frozen, gloved fingers. He stares at it. He cannot operate the latch with his fingers. He must use the edge of the flask to pry it up. He maneuvers the flask, clinking the metal against the glass. The sound is sharp, crystalline. Clink, clink. The latch gives. The glass housing slides up with a screech of metal on metal. The flame, suddenly exposed to the raw air and the wind, flutters wildly. It nearly goes out. The sentry holds his breath, shielding the tiny fire with his body. He uncorks the flask with his teeth, biting down on the wooden stopper and twisting his head. The taste of the oil-soaked wood is bitter and pungent. He spits the stopper into his gloved hand. Then, with infinite care, he tilts the flask. The oil pours out, a thick, sluggish stream of dark fluid. It hits the reservoir, filling the cup. The flame wavers, then catches the fresh fuel. It surges. A burst of yellow light floods the space, pushing the shadows back violently. The sentry blinks, dazzled by the sudden brightness. He lowers the glass housing. The latch clicks shut. The crisis is past. The light is restored. The exertion of this small task leaves him breathless. The heart beats faster, a dull thudding against the ribs. The heat generated by the movement is fleeting, dissipated instantly by the wind that rushes in to steal it. He leans against the post, the flask still in his hand, the stopper lost somewhere in the snow. It does not matter. The flask is empty. He drops it. It lands in the soft drift with no sound, burying itself. It will be found in the spring, a relic of the winter watch. With the light restored, the world takes on a new texture. The fresh illumination reveals the extent of the snowfall. The drifts against the parapet are now waist-high. The crenellations are almost submerged. The wall is becoming a smooth rampart of ice. The sentry looks at his own armor. The larica segmentata is covered in a sheen of frost. The iron plates are no longer gray but white. The condensation from his breath has frozen on the chest plate, creating a bib of ice. He looks like a ghost warrior, a statue carved from rime. The silence returns, heavier than before. The brief sounds of the refueling, the clink, the screech, the tear, have been swallowed by the vast acoustic sponge of the snow. The world is muffled. The wind, now a constant low-pressure draft from the north, makes a sound like a distant ocean, a continuous sh-ch-ch-ch-ch-ch that acts as white noise, scrubbing the mind of thought. It is a hypnotic sound. It mimics the flow of blood in the ears. It blurs the line between the internal and the external. The sentry closes his eyes for a moment, and the sound of the wind becomes the sound of his own existence, a continuous, rushing flow of time. He opens his eyes. He must not close them for long. The eyelids are heavy, weighted with ice on the lashes. To open them requires a conscious effort, a lifting of heavy curtains. The view is the same, the snow falling, the yellow light, the darkness beyond, but there is a subtle change. The quality of the darkness to the north has shifted. It is no longer a flat wall of black. There are depths to it now, layers of shadow. The snow is falling so thickly that it creates a sense of volume in the air. The sentry feels as though he is standing at the bottom of a deep ocean, watching the sediment fall from the surface miles above. The cold has moved into the skeletal structure. The bones of the shins ache with a sharp, drilling pain. The knees are locked, fusing into a single unit. The hips are tight bands of tension. The sentry tries to shift his weight, but the snow holds him fast. He is planted. He accepts this. There is no point in fighting the drift. He is a vertical feature of the wall now. He rests his weight on the shield, the scutum acting as a third leg. The shield is buried deep, its bottom edge resting on the stone beneath the snow. It is solid. He leans his forehead against the rim of the shield. The leather is cold, but it offers a support for the heavy head. He stands in a tripod stance, a pyramid of endurance. The mind drifts to the concept of the enemy. Who is the enemy tonight? It is not the painted men of the north. They are huddled in their roundhouses, wrapped in furs, sleeping by the embers of peat fires. No man moves in this weather. The enemy is the latitude. The enemy is the tilt of the earth away from the sun. The enemy is the absence of heat. It is a cosmic enemy, indifferent and vast. The sentry feels a strange camaraderie with the barbarians tonight. They are all subject to the same tyrant, the winter. On both sides of the wall, men are freezing. The wall divides the land, but the snow unites it in a common suffering. The sound of the wall itself begins to manifest. As the temperature drops further, the stone contracts. Deep within the core of the structure, the rubble fill shifts. The facing stones grind against each other. It produces a sound that is felt more than heard, a low-frequency groan, a geological moan of stress. Grrrru. It comes from beneath the feet, a vibration that travels up the boots. The wall is complaining. It is shrinking in the cold. The sentry feels the vibration in his teeth. It is a reminder that nothing is static. Even the stones are moving, reacting, suffering in their own mineral way. A sudden gust of wind clears a patch of the walkway near the turret, scouring the snow down to the wood. For a second, the dark planks are visible, wet and black. Then the wind dies and the snow begins to cover them again. The sentry watches the wood disappear. It is a slow erasure. First the grain is filled, then the gaps between the planks, then the surface is dusted, then covered, then buried. It takes perhaps 100 heartbeats. It is a lesson in impermanence. Everything that is exposed will eventually be covered. The wall, the road, the empire itself, all destined to be buried under the drift of time. The sensation in the hands is completely gone. The gloves are merely shapes at the end of the arms. The sentry bangs his hands together, palm to palm, thud, thud. The sound is dull, muffled by the wool and leather. He feels the impact in the wrists, but not in the fingers. It is like hitting two blocks of wood together. He tries to wiggle the fingers inside the gloves. He thinks they are moving, but he cannot be sure. He relies on the visual confirmation. Yes, the leather is crinkling slightly. The fingers are still there. They are just sleeping. The smell of the lamp oil lingers in the air, a heavy, greasy scent that hangs in the cold. It mixes with the smell of the wet wool and the metallic tang of the armor. It is the smell of the watch. To the sentry, it is the smell of life. It is the only scent that isn't the sterile neutrality of the ice. He inhales it deeply, savoring the bitterness. It reminds him of the barracks, of the oil lamps that burn while men gamble and tell stories. It is a thin thread of connection to the world of warmth. To the east, the sky seems a shade lighter. It is not dawn. Dawn is hours away. It is perhaps the moon trying to push its light through the thinner clouds. The gray of the sky lifts from a charcoal to a slate. The snow reflects this subtle change, glowing with a faint, ghostly luminescence. The world becomes a silver-gray dreamscape. The shadows soften further. The contrast drops. The sentry feels as though he is dissolving into the gray. The boundaries of his body are blurring. Where does the cloak end and the snow begin? Where does the breath end and the mist begin? He is losing definition. He recites the names of the gods in his head to keep the mind focused. Jupiter, Mars, Apollo, Mithras. The names are just sounds, syllables that float in the silence. They hold no power here. The gods of Rome are sun gods, sky gods, gods of wine and harvest. They have no jurisdiction in this frozen wasteland. Here the gods are older, colder things, the spirits of the bog, the wind, the rock. The sentry feels their presence. They are watching him with indifferent eyes. They are waiting for the fire to go out. They are waiting for the blood to stop. He tightens his grip on the pilum. He is the intruder here. He is the anomaly. The snow accumulates on the shoulders of the cloak until it becomes too heavy to bear. The sentry shrugs, a violent heave of the trapezius muscles. The shelf of snow fractures and slides off, falling to the walkway with a soft plop. The relief is instant but fleeting. The snow immediately begins to rebuild the layer. It is a Sisyphean task. The sky has an infinite supply of weight. The man has a finite supply of strength, but he shrugs again and again. It is a defiance. He refuses to be buried while he is still standing. He looks at the pilum, the heavy javelin held in his right hand. The wood of the shaft is ash, straight and strong. The head is iron, a long, thin pyramidal point designed to punch through shields. It is a weapon of offense, of the charge. Here, leaning against the wall in the dark, it is a crutch. It is a lightning rod for the cold. The iron tip collects the frost, growing a white beard of ice crystals. The sentry runs his thumb over the wood of the shaft. It is smooth, polished by the oil of his skin over many months. He knows every grain of this piece of wood. It is his partner. It is the only thing he holds. The visual focus narrows to a single snowflake landing on the back of the glove. It is a perfect hexagonal star, intricate and symmetrical. The sentry leans in to study it. The lantern light catches the facets of the ice. It glitters with a spectrum of colors, blue, green, a spark of red. It is a jewel, a masterpiece of geometry created in the chaos of the upper atmosphere. It sits on the dark leather for a moment, a pristine object. Then the heat from the hand, faint as it is, begins to attack it. The sharp edges round off. The structure collapses. The jewel turns into a dark droplet of water. It is a microcosm of the night. Creation, beauty, destruction, nothingness. The wind drops completely for a moment. The silence becomes absolute. Not even the hiss of the air remains. In this vacuum of sound, the ringing in the ears becomes a scream, a high-pitched electronic whine that bores into the skull. It is the sound of the nerves straining for input. The sentry opens his mouth to breathe, just to hear the sound of the air passing the lips. H-H-H-ha. It is a rough, raspy sound. It breaks the spell. The wind returns, a gentle sigh, and the ringing subsides to a dull hum. The buildup of snow in the ditch below must be immense. The sentry imagines the depth of it. 6 feet, 8 feet. It smooths out the V-shape of the defensive earthwork, turning it into a gentle, rolling depression. The defenses of the empire are being rendered obsolete by the weather. A barbarian army could walk over the ditch on snowshoes tonight. They could walk right up to the wall, but they would freeze before they reached the top. The winter is the best defender of the province. It builds a wall of cold that is higher and stronger than any wall of stone. The sentry shifts his gaze to the left, down the line of the wall towards the next Milecastle. He can see nothing. The lantern from the next turret is hidden by the curve of the hill and the density of the snow. He is severed from the line. The thought of the other men is an abstract concept. He knows they are there theoretically, but experientially he is the only man on Earth. This solipsism is a side effect of the sensory deprivation. The mind begins to doubt the existence of anything it cannot see or touch. Rome is a dream. The emperor is a myth. The wall is the only reality. A cramp begins to knot in the calf of the right leg, a tight, hot ball of pain in the frozen muscle. The sentry grimaces, the facial expression hidden by the scarf and the darkness. He tries to stretch the leg, pressing the heel down into the ice. The pain is sharp, a sudden spike of sensation in the numbness. It is almost welcome. It is a feeling. It proves the leg is still alive. He works the muscle, flexing and releasing. The cramp subsides slowly, leaving a dull ache. He breathes through it. In, out, in. Out. The pain fades into the background noise of the body's complaints. The lantern light flickers again, not from lack of oil this time, but from a buildup of carbon on the wick. The flame is smoky, casting a sooty shadow. The sentry knows he should trim it. He has a small pair of shears on a chain for this purpose. But the thought of taking the gloves off again, of opening the housing again, is too much. He decides to live with the smoke. The light is dimmer, but it is enough. It is a compromise. He trades a little light for a little warmth. It is a bargain made in the currency of caloric energy. The snow is now piling up on the window ledge of the lantern housing. It creeps up the glass, obscuring the lower inch of the light. The sentry watches it rise. It is like a tide. If he stands here long enough, the snow will cover the lantern completely. It will cover his head. It will smooth over the wall until there is just a long, white ridge running across the country. And in the spring, when the thaw comes, they will find him standing there, a statue of bone and iron, still looking north. The image is peaceful. It lacks horror. It is just a return to the earth. He shakes his head violently, rattling the helmet. No, that is the sleep talking. That is the cold whispering lies. He is not a statue. He is a soldier of the VI Legion. He is alive. He stamps his feet, a heavy, clumsy movement. Crunch, crunch. He bangs the spear butt against the deck. Thud. He asserts his presence. He makes noise. He disturbs the silence. He will not be buried, not yet. The night is past its midpoint. The dead hour is ending. The long slide towards the morning has begun. It will be hours yet before the sky turns gray, but the psychological weight of the night has shifted. The deepest point has been touched. The oil has been refilled. The light holds. The sentry settles back into his stance, his feet deep in the snow, his eyes on the void. He breathes the ice. He endures the weight. The cycle continues. The accumulation of the hours creates a heaviness that rivals the weight of the snow. The night has become a solid structure, a cathedral of darkness and ice in which the sentry is a solitary, frozen pillar. The passage of time is no longer a linear progression of minutes and seconds, but a deepening of the state of being. It is a vertical descent into the cold. The snow continues to descend with a terrifying, silent consistency, adding layer upon layer to the world, smoothing out the rough edges of reality until everything, the stone, the wood, the iron, the man, is unified under a soft, undulating blanket of white. The distinction between the wall and the hill, between the constructed and the natural, has been erased. There is only the white shape of the land and the black shape of the sky. The sentry stands knee-deep in the drift. The snow has risen past the greaves of the armor, reaching the hem of the tunic where it hangs below the larica. The cold from the snowbank conducts directly through the wool of the trousers, finding the skin of the calves and the shins. It is a numbing, hydrostatic pressure, as if he were wading into a freezing river that has stopped flowing. The heat of the legs fights a losing battle against the mass of the snow. The body has surrendered the extremities, pulling the warm blood back into the torso, leaving the legs to exist as cold, mechanical struts supporting the weight of the watch. To move the feet now would require a violent disruption of the packed snow, an expenditure of energy that the body is unwilling to authorize. So he remains rooted, a plant of iron and flesh growing out of the ice. The visual field is a study in softness and obscurity. The drawing of the scene has lost all its hard lines. The charcoal strokes that define the masonry have been smudged into a gray fog. The white pastel of the snow is applied thick and heavy, obscuring the texture of the paper. The lantern light is a faint, glowing bruise in the center of the composition, a sphere of hazy ochre that fades rapidly into the blue-gray gloom. Within this sphere, the falling snowflakes are not distinct crystals but streaks of motion, a curtain of static that separates the watcher from the world. The visibility is reduced to the length of a spear shaft. Beyond that, the universe is a void of swirling vapor and ice. The silence has a texture. It is not empty, it is thick, packed with the falling snow. It presses against the ears like a physical substance, blocking out the memory of sound. The wind has dropped to a low, barely perceptible breath that stirs the air without moving it. It is a stagnant cold, a pool of freezing air that has settled into the hollow of the wall. In this silence, the internal sounds of the body become deafening. The slow, hydraulic thud of the heart. The wet, friction-filled sound of the lungs expanding. The high-pitched whine of the nervous system straining for input. The sentry hears his own existence echoing inside the helmet. It is a lonely sound, the sound of a machine running in an empty room. The mind, deprived of external stimuli, begins to construct its own reality. It projects images onto the white screen of the snow. For a moment, the sentry sees the shape of a colonnade in the drift, the white marble columns of a temple in Rome. He sees the sun hitting the stone, feels the heat radiating from the pavement. The hallucination is vivid, overlaying the gray reality with a phantom warmth. He smells the dust and the incense. Then a flake of ice lands on the eyelid, melting instantly, and the shock of the cold water wipes the image away. The temple vanishes. The marble columns become mounds of snow. The sun becomes the dying lantern. The reality of the wall returns, colder and harder than before. He looks at the back of the shield, the scutum that leans against his hip. The wood on the inside is dark, stained with sweat and oil. The horizontal grip is polished smooth. He traces the grain of the wood with his eyes, following the dark lines as they curve and twist. It is a map of a tree that lived and died years ago in a forest far to the south. The wood is real. It is organic matter that has been shaped by tools. It anchors him. He presses his gloved hand against the wood, seeking a texture that is not snow. The wood is cold, but it is dry. It offers a momentary tactile relief from the wet, freezing world outside. The condensation on the inside of the nose guard has frozen into a small stalactite of ice. It touches the tip of the nose, a sharp, cold point of contact. The sentry twitches his nose, trying to dislodge it. It holds fast. He has to reach up with a clumsy, frozen hand and break it off. The ice snaps with a tiny, crystalline sound. He drops the shard. It falls into the snow and disappears instantly. The body is producing ice. The breath is turning to stone. It is a slow transformation. The boundary between the man and the winter is becoming porous. The weight of the helmet, the Gallia, is a constant pressure on the brow and the base of the skull. The padding inside, made of felt and wool, has compressed over the hours, becoming hard and thin. The iron band of the helmet sits heavy on the head. The sentry shifts his jaw, trying to relieve the tension in the neck muscles. The metal cheek guards scrape against the rusted iron of the shoulder plates. Rich. The sound is ugly, a grinding of metal on metal that sets the teeth on edge. It is the sound of the machine needing oil, but there is no oil. There is only the ice. The smell of the air is changing. It no longer smells just of snow. There is a faint metallic tang, the smell of ozone and electricity. It is the smell of the deep cold of the atmosphere thinning and hardening. It smells like iron that has been left out in the frost. It is a clean, sterile scent devoid of life. It scours the throat, drying out the mucous membranes until every breath feels like inhaling dust. The sentry swallows, a painful click in the dry throat. He longs for the sour taste of the pasca, but he knows the flask is a block of ice. To drink now would be to swallow pain. The lantern flame is steady but small. It burns with a quiet determination, consuming the oil drop by drop. The sentry watches the soot building up on the glass. It forms a landscape of black peaks and valleys, a shadow city on the pane. The light struggles to get through the grime. The sentry knows he should clean it, but the energy required is immense. He decides that the light is sufficient. It is enough to see the snow. It is enough to know he is still there. The compromise with the cold continues. Every action is weighed against the cost in heat. To the north, the darkness is a heavy velvet curtain. It hides the landscape completely. The sentry knows that out there in the void there are hills, streams, trees, but tonight they are theoretical. The world ends at the edge of the lantern light. The universe has shrunk to a circle of 10 feet. Inside this circle, he is the master. Outside, there is only chaos. He stares into the black, challenging it to produce a shape, a movement. It produces nothing but the falling white dust. The enemy is sleeping. The war is paused. The weather has declared a truce, a silence enforced by the snow. The sensation of the toes has vanished completely. The feet are heavy blocks at the end of the legs. The sentry wonders with a detached curiosity if they are frostbit. He tries to curl them. He feels a phantom movement, a ghost of a sensation, but he cannot be sure if the flesh is actually moving. The fear of the frostbite is a dull, background anxiety. It is not sharp. The cold dampens the fear just as it dampens the pain. He tells himself that the wool socks are thick, that the leather is good. He tells himself he will walk again when the sun rises. The logic is comforting, even if the sensation is gone. He begins to count the layers of his clothing in his mind, a mental inventory of his defenses. 1. The linen undertunic, soft against the skin. 2. The wool tunic, thick and scratchy. 3. The subarmales, the padded jacket of leather and linen. 4. The scarf wrapped 3 times around the neck. 5. The cloak, the heavy sagum folded double. 5 layers between the heart and the winter. It seems like enough. But the cold finds the gaps. It creeps in at the wrist, at the neck, at the hem. It is a fluid searching for a way in. It is patient. It waits for a seam to open, for a layer to shift. The snow on the walkway has changed texture. It is no longer soft powder. The weight of the accumulation has packed the lower layers into a dense, semi-solid mass. It grips the boots like wet concrete. The sentry feels the solidity of it. He is encased. If he wanted to run, he could not. He would have to dig his legs out. He is a fixture of the wall, as immobile as a gargoyle. This immobility is strangely calming. He does not have to decide to stay. The snow has decided for him. He is held in place by the season itself. A sudden vibration runs through the timber of the walkway. A heavy, dull thud from somewhere below. A roof beam settling in the fort. A horse kicking a stall door. The sound is muffled, distant, but distinct. It is a message from the world of the living. Someone else is awake. Someone else is moving. The sentry feels a flicker of connection. He is not the last man on earth. The Legion is still there, buried under the snow, sleeping, waiting. The thought warms him for a second. He is the guardian of the sleepers. His wakefulness buys their rest. The wind shifts again, blowing from the east now, running along the length of the wall. It catches the edge of the shield, making it hum with a low, resonant frequency. VVVVVVVMMM. The shield is singing. The sentry places his hand on the rim to stop the vibration. The silence returns instantly. The instrument is muted. He regrets it. The sound was company. He lifts his hand. The wind has changed angle slightly and the shield remains silent. The song is over. He waits for it to return, but there is only the hiss of the snow. The texture of the wool cloak has changed. The outer layer is frozen hard, a shell of ice-impregnated fabric. But underneath, near the body, the wool is warm and damp. It is a microclimate of humidity. The smell is intense, wet sheep, lanolin, sweat. It is a primal animal smell. It reminds the sentry that he is an animal, a warm-blooded creature wrapped in the skin of another animal, hiding from the cold. The civilization of Rome, with its stone and iron, is just a veneer. Underneath, it is just flesh trying to stay warm. The visual focus shifts to the iron tip of the pilum. The spearhead is a long, thin pyramid of metal. It collects the light of the lantern and holds it in a small, sharp highlight on the very tip. The rest of the metal is dark, rusted, pitted. The sentry stares at the highlight. It is the sharpest thing in the world. It is a point of absolute focus. If he stares at it long enough, the rest of the world fades away. The snow disappears. The wall disappears. There is only the point of light. It is a hypnotic anchor. He lets his vision narrow, excluding the cold, excluding the dark. He exists only in the reflection of the flame on the iron. Then a blink breaks the trance. The world rushes back in. The snow is falling harder now. The flakes are larger, clumping together as they fall. They look like feathers, like scraps of torn paper. They are heavy. They land with a perceptible weight on the shoulders. The sentry feels the burden increasing. He is carrying the sky on his back. He adjusts his stance, widening the feet slightly in the drift to support the load. The spine compresses. The knees lock. He is a caryatid of the frontier, holding up the winter. The boredom is a vast gray ocean. The mind floats on it, drifting without direction. Thoughts come and go, untethered. A dog barking in a street in Capua, the taste of a fig, the sound of a hammer on an anvil, the color of a girl's dress. These are fragments, debris from a life lived in the sun. They float by and sink into the dark water. The sentry watches them go. He does not try to hold them. To hold on to a memory is to feel the pain of its absence. It is better to let them drift. It is better to be empty, to be a vessel for the watch. The snow pile on the turret roof must be massive now. The eaves hang low with thick cornices of snow that curl inward like frozen waves. Occasionally, a piece breaks off and falls. Whump! The sound is soft, heavy. The architecture is being softened, rounded, turned into a structure of marshmallow and cream. It looks innocent, soft, inviting. But the sentry knows the truth. The snow is heavy. It is cold. It kills. It is a soft trap. He respects it. He fears it. He endures it. The light from the lantern catches the eyes of the sentry. In the reflection of the glass, he sees a ghostly image of his own face. It is a mask of shadow and ice. The eyes are dark hollows. The beard is white. The skin is pale. He looks like a stranger. He looks like an old man. The night has aged him. The cold has weathered him. He stares at the reflection, trying to recognize the recruit who marched north 3 years ago. That boy is gone. There is only the sentry, the man of the wall. He flexes the fingers of the right hand inside the glove. They move slowly, stiffly. The joints feel rusty. He makes a fist, squeezing the handle of the pilum. The wood creaks. The sensation of the grip is distant, muted by the leather and the numbness, but the strength is there. The muscles of the forearm contract. The tendon pulls. The machine still works. It is slow, it is cold, but it functions. This is the pride of the legionary, to function when the world has stopped, to work in the dark. The silence deepens further as the wind dies completely for a moment. The air is still. The snow falls straight down, vertical lines of white tracing the gravity of the earth. In this stillness, the sentry feels a profound sense of peace. It is the peace of the deep freeze. The struggle seems to suspend. The body stops fighting and simply exists. It is a dangerous peace, the precursor to the sleep that does not end. He recognizes it. He shakes his head, rattling the ice on the helmet. Wake up. He moves his jaw, he blinks, he disrupts the peace, he chooses the struggle. The visual landscape is monochromatic perfection. Black, white, gray. The only color is the dying yellow of the flame. The world has been simplified. The complexities of politics, of rank, of pay, of war, they have all been stripped away. There is only the temperature. There is only the state of matter, solid, liquid, gas. The sentry is a solid object standing in a gas that is turning into a solid. It is elemental. It is pure. He looks down at the wall itself, the stone beneath the snow. He cannot see it, but he knows it is there. He feels the solidity of it through the soles of the boots. It is the foundation. It is the line that must not be crossed. Even buried in snow, the line exists. It exists in the mind of the soldier. It exists in the maps in Rome. It exists in the fear of the tribes to the north. The snow can cover the stone, but it cannot erase the line. The sentry is the living embodiment of that line. He stands where the empire says stop. The night stretches on, a dark tunnel with no light at the end. The sentry walks the tunnel standing still. The snow falls. The wind breathes. The lantern burns. The cycle of the watch rotates slowly, grinding against the cold. The sentry waits. He is the stone. He is the ice. He is the wall. The progression of the night has reached a plateau of absolute stillness. The storm, which earlier had possessed a certain erratic energy, has now settled into a steady, vertical descent of mass. The snow falls with a hypnotic uniformity, a curtain of white beads moving endlessly from the invisible sky to the buried earth. The rate of accumulation is constant, a mathematical inevitability that is slowly altering the dimensions of the known world. The sentry, standing at his post, has become a geodetic marker in this rising tide of white. The snow has drifted high against the parapet, filling the walkway to the level of the thigh. He stands within the drift, his legs encased in a mold of packed powder that holds him upright with the rigidity of mortar. The sensation of the lower body is gone. The legs are no longer limbs of flesh and muscle capable of movement. They are architectural columns, numb and solid, supporting the heavy capital of the torso and the head. The temperature has stabilized at a point of profound frigidity. It is a cold that does not fluctuate. It is a solid state of the atmosphere. The air is so cold that it feels thick, almost viscous, resisting the passage of the hand or the turning of the head. To breathe is to inhale broken glass. The air enters the nostrils sharp and dry, stripping the moisture from the sinuses, and travels down the throat like a stream of ice water. The lungs ache with a dull, persistent throb, a reminder that the organism is operating outside its design parameters. The exhalation is a dense, white plume that hangs before the face for a long moment, a ghost of the breath, before sinking slowly towards the ground, heavier than the surrounding air. Visually, the scene is rendered in the deepest, softest tones of the dark spectrum. The charcoal darkness of the sky presses down upon the white pastel of the snow. The boundary between the two is blurred, a gradient of falling flakes that bridges the gap between the void and the wall. The lantern light is the only disruption in this binary world. It hangs suspended in the gloom, a sphere of hazy amber that illuminates the texture of the falling snow. Within its radius, the flakes are golden sparks. Outside it, they are gray shadows. The light does not reflect off the stone anymore, for the stone is gone, buried deep beneath the white blanket. It reflects only off the snow, creating a soft, diffuse glow that seems to emanate from the drift itself. The shadows cast by the sentry are soft-edged, amorphous shapes that stretch out across the white mounds, moving sluggishly when he shifts his weight. The silence is a physical weight. It presses against the helmet, muffling the world. It is not merely the absence of sound, it is the presence of a dampening field. The snow absorbs every vibration. The clink of a buckle, the creak of a leather strap, the grind of a tooth. These sounds are birthed and killed instantly, swallowed by the insatiable white sponge that surrounds the post. The wind has died away to nothing. The air is stagnant. The only sound that remains is the internal rhythm of the sentry's body, the slow, hydraulic pump of the heart pushing the thickening blood through the veins, a thump-thump that resonates in the ears like a drum beaten in a deep cavern. It is the sound of survival, slow, stubborn, and solitary. The mind of the sentry has detached itself from the linear narrative of time. Past and future have dissolved. There is no before the watch and no after the watch. There is only the watch. The consciousness floats in a gray space, tethered to the physical world by the thin cords of sensory input, the cold on the cheek, the weight on the shoulder, the light in the eye. Thoughts are slow, drifting like the snowflakes. They form, hover for a moment, and then dissolve. He thinks of a stone in a riverbed, smooth and cold. He becomes the stone. He thinks of an old oak tree in winter, dormant and waiting. He becomes the tree. The boundaries of the ego are permeable. He is merging with the environment. The accumulation of ice on the equipment is significant. The scutum shield, leaning against the hip, is no longer a recognizable piece of military kit. It is a white rectangular slab fused to the drift. The leather rim is encased in clear ice. The boss, the iron umbo in the center, is a white mound. The sentry's hand, resting on the top edge, is buried under an inch of snow. He does not move it. To move the hand would be to break the seal, to invite the fresh cold into the glove. He lets the snow cover it. It acts as an insulator, a blanket of ice that keeps the wind away. The hand is cold, but it is a stable cold. It is a dormant claw waiting for the signal that does not come. The helmet, the Gallia, has become a dome of snow. The metal is completely hidden. The wide neck guard at the back channels the snow down onto the shoulders of the cloak, where it joins the main drift. The sentry feels the weight of it, a heavy crown of winter. The brow ridge of the helmet presses down on the forehead, a dull metal headache that has become part of the background noise of the night. The cheek guards squeeze the jaw. He opens his mouth slightly inside the scarf to relieve the pressure. The jaw cracks, a dry, loud sound in the inner ear. The muscles are stiff. He closes the mouth again. The teeth meet with a click. The vibration travels through the skull. He focuses his eyes on a single flaw in the glass of the lantern, a bubble trapped in the pane when the glass was blown. It distorts the flame behind it, stretching the orange light into a tiny, curved streak. He stares at this streak. It is a universe of its own. It shifts and dances as the flame flickers. It is a tiny, captive comet. The sentry pours his entire attention into this flaw. It keeps him awake. It gives the mind a focal point, a hook to hang onto so it doesn't slide into the abyss of sleep. As long as he sees the flaw, he is conscious. As long as he is conscious, the line holds. The smell of the oil lamp is the only scent in the world. It is heavy, greasy, slightly acrid. It hangs in the still air, a cloud of hydrocarbon exhaust that clings to the wool of the scarf. To the sentry, it is the smell of duty. It is the smell of the artificial sun that keeps the monsters away. He inhales it deeply. It coats the back of the throat with a phantom taste of soot. It is a dirty smell, a human smell, and for that reason it is precious. It stands in opposition to the clean, sterile, deadly smell of the ice. The visual texture of the darkness beyond the light is velvety and dense. It is not empty space. It feels filled with a dark matter, a heavy, suffocating medium. The drawing of the night is heavy with black pigment, layered and compressed until it reflects no light. The sentry feels that if he were to reach out with his spear, the tip would not pass through the dark but would strike it with a thud, as if hitting a wall of black felt. The world has closed in. The horizon is at arm's length. The universe is a closet. Inside the chest, the core temperature is being fiercely defended. The body has sacrificed the periphery. The fingers, the toes, the ears, the nose, these are expendable outposts. The garrison of heat has retreated to the citadel of the heart and lungs. The sentry can feel this centralization. His chest feels warm, almost hot in comparison to the limbs. It is a furnace burning the last of the fuel. He feels a hunger that is past hunger, a hollowness that is structural. The body is eating itself to keep the fire lit. The fat reserves are gone. The muscle is being consumed. He is becoming lighter, hollower, more brittle. A memory surfaces, unbidden. The sound of a blacksmith's hammer in the legionary fortress at Eboracum. Clang, 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 the heat of the forge, the sparks flying in the dark workshop, the smell of hot iron and singed hair. The memory is so vivid it creates a phantom warmth on the skin of the face. He leans into it, closing his eyes for a fraction of a second to inhabit the memory. He sees the glowing metal. He feels the radiant heat. Then the cold bites the tip of the nose and the memory shatters. The forge goes dark. The silence rushes back in. He is back on the wall in the snow in the night. The snow level on the walkway has risen to the point where the sentry's hand, hanging by his side, is brushing the surface of the drift. He can feel the texture of the snow through the glove. It is grainy, hard-packed. He traces a small circle in the snow with his index finger, round and round. It is a tiny glyph, a mark of presence. The snow fills the groove as soon as he makes it. The record is erased. The winter does not allow graffiti. It demands a blank slate. The weight of the wool cloak is immense. It has absorbed moisture from the air and frozen stiff. It hangs on the shoulders like a wooden yoke. The sentry tries to roll his shoulders to alleviate the strain. The movement is microscopic. The frozen wool creaks. It does not fold, it bends like stiff cardboard. The ice crystals embedded in the weave grind together. Crunch creak. The sound is muffled but audible. The cloak has become a prison. He is trapped inside his own uniform. But he does not take it off. To take it off is to die. The prison is also the fortress. The lantern flame dips low, turning blue at the base. A draft has found its way into the housing. The sentry watches it with a spike of anxiety. If the light goes out, the darkness will be absolute. The psychological weight of that would be crushing. He holds his breath, willing the flame to stabilize. He imagines his will as a shield around the fire. Stay. Burn. The flame wavers, trembles, and then rights itself, returning to a steady yellow. The sentry exhales slowly. The cloud of breath washes over the lantern glass, fogging it for a moment before fading. The light is safe. The vigil continues. To the north, the void is quiet. There are no wolves tonight, no owls, no barbarians. The cold has driven every living thing into the earth. The sentry is the only creature foolish enough to stand in the open. He feels a strange pride in this. He is the apex predator of endurance. He can outlast the wolf. He can outlast the deer. He can outlast the night. It is a grim pride, a stoic victory of will over instinct. His instinct screams to curl up, to hide, to sleep. His will commands him to stand. The will is the Roman part of him. The instinct is the animal part. The Roman is winning. The texture of the stone wall is a memory. He cannot see it or touch it. It is buried, but he knows it is there. He feels the vibrations of the earth through the stone and into his boots, a deep seismic hum that is below the threshold of hearing. The earth is turning. The tectonic plates are grinding. The wall is riding the back of the world. The sentry rides the wall. He is a passenger on a planetary journey through the dark. The thought makes him dizzy. He focuses on the lantern post. It is the only vertical truth. The scarf around the mouth has frozen into a solid mask. The moisture from the breath has turned the wool into a block of ice. It touches the lips, cold and hard. It chafes the skin. The sentry tries to push it down with his chin, but it is rigid. It is molded to the shape of his face. He is wearing a cast of his own jaw. He accepts the discomfort. It is just another sensation to be catalogued and ignored. The list of discomforts is long. The numb feet, the aching back, the heavy head, the dry eyes, the raw throat. He files them away in the back of the mind. They are the cost of doing business. The snowflakes are large now, falling in complex clusters. They land on the glove and sit there, pristine and white against the dark leather. The sentry studies one. It looks like a fern, a delicate branching structure of ice. It is perfect. It was created in the upper atmosphere, traveled miles through the dark, and landed here on a Roman glove to be observed for a second before being destroyed. The sentry feels a sense of responsibility. He is the witness. He acknowledges the snowflake. I see you. Then he brushes it off. It falls into the drift and is lost. The passage of time is measured in the accumulation of the drift. He looks at a mark on the lantern post, a knot in the wood. An hour ago, the snow was 6 inches below the knot. Now it is touching the knot. The snow is a slow-motion clock. It rises with a terrifying consistency. The sentry calculates the rate. By dawn, the walkway will be impassable. The relief guard will have to dig a trench to reach him. He imagines them coming, shoveling the white earth, finding him standing there like a pillar. The image is almost funny. He smiles inside the scarf. The lips crack. The smile hurts. He stops smiling. The boredom has evolved into a state of pure existence. The mind is no longer seeking entertainment. It is content to simply observe the nothingness. It is a Zen state forced by hypothermia and isolation. The sentry is not waiting for anything anymore. He is just being. He is a consciousness suspended in white. The internal dialogue has stopped. The chatter of the brain has been silenced by the cold. There is only the input, white, cold, dark, quiet. He shifts his grip on the pillow. The hand is a clumsy block. He squeezes the shaft. He cannot feel the wood, but he sees the glove tight. That is enough. The connection is maintained. The spear is an extension of the arm. It points to the sky, a lightning rod for the snow. A small cap of snow has formed on the very tip of the iron head. It looks like a white hat. The sentry watches it. It grows taller, then topples off. A new one begins to form. It is a cycle of minute construction and collapse. The silence is broken by the sound of the lantern housing contracting. Tink. A tiny, high-pitched sound of metal cooling. It rings in the stillness like a bell. The sentry jumps slightly, a microscopic startle response. The sound is so loud, it echoes in the memory for minutes afterwards. Tink. It is the only conversation he has had in hours. The lantern is talking to him. It is complaining about the cold. He understands. He would complain too if his voice were not frozen in his throat. The visual field is a blur of soft edges. The eyes are tired. The focus mechanism is sluggish. He looks at the snow and it blurs into a fog. He blinks and it sharpens for a second, then blurs again. The muscles of the eyes are fatigued. He lets them relax. The world becomes an impressionist painting, soft dabs of white on black. The lantern is a smear of gold. The shield is a smudge of gray. It is a pleasant way to see the world. It hides the sharp reality of the ice. It makes the night look soft, comfortable. He feels a heaviness in the eyelids that is irresistible. They want to close. They want to seal the eyes against the wind. He fights it. He widens the eyes, staring until they burn. He counts the seconds. 1, 2, 3. He cannot close them. If he closes them, the dreams will come, and the dreams are dangerous. They are warm. They are seductive. They will tell him to lie down. He must stay in the cold, hard reality. He forces a blink. Snap. Open. The white world remains. The cramp in the leg has returned, a low, dull throb in the calf. It is a companion now. He welcomes it. It is a sensation. It means the nerves are still firing. He shifts the weight to the other leg, sinking deeper into the snow. The snow crunches, grr runch. The sound is muffled, felt in the bone. The relief is minor. The ache shifts to the other leg. It is a game of trading pain. Left leg, right leg, left leg. It keeps the blood moving. It keeps the statue from solidifying completely. The wind rises slightly, a gentle breath from the north. It stirs the loose powder on top of the drifts. White ghosts dance across the walkway. They swirl around the sentry's knees, wrapping him in a mist of ice. He watches them. They look like spirits, the spirits of the Picts, the spirits of the dead legionaries, or just the wind. He does not know. He does not care. They are just movement in a still world. They pass him and flow over the edge of the wall, falling into the south. The texture of the glove leather is now like iron. It is hard, unyielding. If he were to take the glove off, it would hold the shape of the hand. It is a shell. The hand inside is shrunken, cold, pale. The sentry wonders if the hand still belongs to him. It feels like a tool he is holding, a pair of tongs made of meat and bone. He commands the tongs to squeeze. They squeeze. The mechanism is intact. The snow falls on the eyelashes, weighing them down. The sentry has to blink rapidly to clear the vision. The ice melts on the rim of the eye, blurring the sight with water. He wipes the eyes with the back of the hard glove. It is a rough, abrasive movement. It scratches the skin. The pain is sharp. He winces. Good, pain is life. He wipes again. The vision clears. The lantern burns. The snow falls. He looks up at the sky. It is a limitless black void pouring white dust. It feels heavy, as if the sky is collapsing onto the earth. The weight of the heavens is pressing down on the wall. The sentry feels small, insignificant. He is an ant standing under a falling mountain. But the ant stands. The ant holds the spear. The ant wears the iron. The scale of the universe does not negate the duty of the ant. The feeling of the stone beneath the feet is the only solid thing left. The wood of the walkway is covered in ice and snow, but beneath that is the timber, and beneath that is the stone. The stone goes down into the earth, deep into the bedrock. It is a connection to the center of the world. The sentry imagines the roots of the wall, gripping the earth. He is part of that grip. He is the nail that holds the empire to the edge of the map. The night wears on. The accumulation grows, the silence deepens. The sentry stands in the white trough, a dark vertical line in a horizontal world. He breathes the ice. He watches the light. He waits for the dawn that seems like a myth. The cycle is endless. The snow is endless. The watch is endless. The night has entered a phase of suspension. A temporal stasis where the forward momentum of the world seems to have been arrested by the sheer weight of the cold. The snowfall, which earlier had a sense of urgency, has now become a permanent condition of the atmosphere, a steady, vertical deposition of silence that accumulates with the inevitability of geological sediment. The sentry stands buried in this rising tide. The drift on the walkway has reached the mid-thigh, a heavy, white restraint that locks the legs in place. The snow has filled the space between the body and the stone parapet, acting as a mortar that binds the man to the wall. He is no longer merely guarding the structure. He has been assimilated into it, a biological component fused to the masonry by the freezing action of the winter. The temperature has bottomed out, reaching a plateau of absolute crystalline frigidity. It is a cold that transcends sensation. It is no longer felt as a chill on the skin, for the skin has long since gone numb. It is felt as a structural solidity, a hardening of the fluids and the fibers of the body. The blood feels thick and sluggish in the veins, moving with the viscosity of cold oil. The joints are calcified, the synovial fluid turning to paste. The breath does not flow. It shatters in the throat, entering the lungs as a jagged intake of dry, freezing air. The exhalation is a dense, heavy fog that barely rises before sinking down to join the snow, adding its tiny moisture to the accumulation of the drift. Visually, the scene is a study in the near-total absence of light. The drawing of the world has been worked over with the heaviest, darkest charcoals, layer upon layer, until the paper is almost black. The only relief is the lantern, but even that faithful companion is struggling. The snow has piled up on the glass housing, creating a white cowl that directs the light downwards. The illumination is restricted to a small, conical pool around the sentry's boots, or rather, where the boots would be, were they not buried deep beneath the white surface. Within this cone of light, the snow is a blinding, textured white, a landscape of miniature peaks and valleys that glows with a cold, internal fire. Outside this cone, the world is a gradient of gray fading rapidly into the abyss. The contrast is extreme. The brilliant, granular white of the snow against the suffocating, heavy black of the void. The silence is absolute. It is a silence that has weight and mass. It presses in on the eardrums, a vacuum that sucks the sound out of the mind. The wind has ceased entirely. The air is motionless, paralyzed by the cold. There is no rustle of grass, for the grass is buried. There is no creak of wood, for the wood is frozen solid. There is only the internal soundscape of the sentry's physiology, the slow sledgehammer beat of the heart, the high-pitched whine of the nervous system, the faint, wet click of the eyelids separating as he blinks. These sounds are magnified, distorted by the isolation, becoming the only reality in a universe that has gone mute. The sentry's mind has retreated into a state of deep hibernation. The higher functions of logic and memory have powered down to conserve energy. He is not thinking in sentences anymore. He is thinking in impressions, in slow-moving currents of sensation. Cold, white, heavy, still. The concepts float through the consciousness like icebergs in a dark sea. The identity of the soldier, his name, his rank, his origin, has been temporarily erased. He is simply the watcher. He is the eye that remains open when the world closes its eyes. The sensation of the armor is a constant, crushing presence. The lorica segmentata has contracted in the cold, the iron plates tightening around the chest like a constrictor snake. The metal is freezing, a heat sink that pulls the warmth out of the core. Even through the layers of the subarmales and the tunic, the chill of the iron radiates inward. The weight of it sits on the shoulders, a burden that drags the spine downwards. The sentry adjusts his posture, a microscopic realignment of the vertebrae, trying to find a balance point where the weight is carried by the bones rather than the muscles. The movement causes the frozen leather straps to groan, a sound like old wood splitting. Crrrack. It is a harsh intrusion into the silence. The snow on the helmet has grown into a significant structure. A tall, white cone sits atop the metal dome, giving the sentry the silhouette of a wizard or a high priest. It adds inches to his height and pounds to the load on his neck. He does not brush it off. To move the arm is too costly. The energy required to lift the heavy, sodden cloak and the frozen arm is better saved for the generation of body heat. He lets the snow sit. It is an insulator of sorts, a roof over the head. He has become a building, and the snow is his thatch. The wool of the cloak is now a rigid shell. The moisture from the earlier sleet and the humidity of the air has frozen the fibers together. It stands away from the body in stiff folds, like a garment carved from wood. The sentry is encased in a sculpture of drapery. Inside this shell, there is a small, stagnant layer of air that is slightly warmer than the outside, warmed by the slow combustion of his metabolism. He guards this air jealously. He keeps his arms tucked close to his sides, sealing the gaps. He buries his chin deep into the scarf, plugging the top of the enclosure. He is a hermit crab inside a shell of ice and wool. The visual focus drifts to the texture of the snow in the lantern light. The surface is not smooth. It is wind-scoured, pitted, crystalline. The sentry stares at a single square inch of the drift. He sees the individual grains of ice. He sees the way they interlock, forming a lattice of white. He sees the tiny shadows cast by the crystals, microscopic pockets of blue in the sea of white. It is a fractural landscape. If he could shrink down, he could walk among those crystals like a man walking in a forest of glass. The mind plays with this image, shrinking the self, wandering into the snow, finding a cave of ice to sleep in. It is a seductive thought. Sleep. Rest. He shakes his head, rattling the iron cheek guards. No, the giant must remain awake. The hunger that had plagued him earlier has vanished, replaced by a strange, hollow nausea. The stomach has shriveled, accepting its emptiness. The body has switched to a different fuel source, consuming the dense energy of the muscles and the deep reserves of the liver. The taste in the mouth is metallic, the taste of ketosis. It is a clean, sharp taste, the taste of the body eating itself. The sentry swallows, the throat dry and clicking. The saliva is thick. He longs for water, but the flask is solid. He considers eating the snow. It is right there within reach, but he knows the lore. To eat snow is to lower the core temperature. It costs heat to melt the ice. It is a false refreshment. He abstains. The thirst is just another burden to be carried. To the north, the darkness is a physical barrier. The mist and the falling snow have created a wall of opacity that sits 3 feet from his face. He is staring into a cloud. He cannot see the ditch. He cannot see the ground. He cannot see the enemy. He relies on his ears, but the snow muffles everything. He is blind and deaf in the white room. This isolation breeds paranoia. Is there someone out there, standing just beyond the light, watching him? He strains his eyes, looking for a shadow that is darker than the others. He sees movement, swirling shapes, dark figures, but it is just the snow eddying in the gentle draft of the lantern heat. Pareidolia, the mind demanding a pattern where there is none. The lantern flame is the heartbeat of the post. It pulses slowly, a rhythmic dimming and brightening as the air supply fluctuates. The sentry feels a deep, emotional attachment to the flame. It is the only other living thing in his world. It is fighting the same battle. It is consuming itself to stay bright. He worries about the oil. Is there enough? He refilled it hours ago, or was it minutes? Time is distorted. He checks the reservoir through the sooty glass. He cannot see the level. He has to trust it. He has to have faith in the flame. The texture of the stone wall beneath the snow is a memory of solidity. He shifts his feet inside the boots. The toes are gone, sensory voids at the end of the feet. He presses them down, trying to feel the wood of the walkway. He feels a dull pressure, remote and distant. It feels like walking on stumps. He wonders if the toes are black. He wonders if he will lose them. The thought is dispassionate. It is a logistical concern, like a broken strap or a chipped blade. If the toes go, he will be invalided out. He will get a pension. He will sit by a fire in a villa in Gaul. It sounds like a fantasy from a different life. For now, he needs the stumps to hold him up. The weight of the silence is broken by a sudden sound from the lantern. Pop, a pocket of water in the oil flashing into steam. The flame sputters, turning blue, then flares yellow again. The sound is startlingly loud. The sentry flinches. The movement cracks the ice on the scarf. CRR-rack. 2 sounds in the night. They echo in the memory. Pop. CRR-rack. It is a dialogue of the inanimate. The lantern speaks. The armor answers. The man is just the medium. The snow accumulation on the scutum shield has completely buried the design. The lightning bolts of Jupiter are hidden. The red paint is covered. It is a white tablet now. The sentry rests his gloved hand on the top edge. The snow is up to his wrist. He feels the cold of the snow pressing against the leather of the glove. It is a biting cold, seeking the skin. He withdraws the hand slightly, tucking it back into the fold of the cloak. The shield stands alone, a monument to the watch. The fog of the breath is thick and heavy. It freezes on the mustache, adding to the ice shelf on the lip. The icicles hang down, touching the scarf. When the sentry moves his head, the icicles pull on the hair. It is a sharp, stinging pain. He welcomes it. It is a distinct sensation. It cuts through the numbness. He pushes his tongue against the back of his teeth. The teeth are cold. The air he inhales cools the teeth from the inside. The cold is pervasive. It is inside the mouth, inside the chest, inside the bones. He thinks of the vast distance to Rome, thousands of miles, roads, rivers, mountains, seas, and at the end of it, a city of marble and sun. It seems impossible that this wall and that city exist on the same planet. Here, the world is primordial, unfinished. It is a land of ice and mud. Rome is a land of geometry and light. The sentry is the bridge. He is the extension of the geometry into the chaos. He is the straight line imposed on the wild curve. The boredom is a vast, empty plain. The mind wanders across it looking for a landmark. It finds a memory of a game of dice. The sound of the bone cubes hitting the wooden table. The laughter of the optio, the taste of the cheap wine. The memory is flat, desaturated, it lacks emotional resonance. It is just data. The cold has stripped the emotion from the memories. They are just facts now. I was there, I did that. Now I am here. I am doing this. The snow falls on the eyelid. The sentry blinks. The water runs down the cheek. It feels like a tear. He is not crying. He is too cold to cry. It is just the weather. The face is a landscape of ice and water. The skin is pale, waxy. The blood has retreated. If you were to cut him, he might not bleed. He might just leak ice water. He looks at the pilum shaft. The ash wood is dark, almost black in the low light. The grain is invisible. He knows the balance of the weapon. He knows how it flies, but tonight it is not a weapon. It is a staff. It is a prop. He leans on it heavily. The iron tip points to the black sky, accusing the heavens of this cruelty. The sky does not answer. The snow keeps falling. A sudden draft of wind swirls the snow in the ditch below. For a second the mist clears and he sees the bottom of the V-shape. It is a deep white trench. It looks soft. It looks like a feather bed. The urge to jump is there, a whisper in the back of the brain. Jump. It is soft. You can sleep. He grips the railing. The wood is icy. The grip is slippery. He holds on. The railing is the boundary between duty and oblivion. He stays on the duty side. The cramps in the legs have subsided into a permanent, dull ache. The muscles have given up protesting and have accepted the tension. The sentry is a statue of tension. Every muscle is tight, holding the skeleton upright. It is an isometric exercise that has lasted for hours. The fatigue is deep, cellular. It is a toxicity in the blood. The body wants to collapse. The gravity is pulling him down. The snow is pulling him down. Only the will holds him up. The visual style of the scene is now minimal. The artist has stopped adding detail. It is just broad strokes of darkness and light. The shape of the sentry is a dark monolith. The shape of the lantern is a glowing dot. The rest is texture. The texture of the falling snow. The texture of the silence. It is a masterpiece of minimalism. It conveys the essence of the experience, isolation. The smell of the wool is the smell of the herd. He is a sheep in wolf's clothing. No, a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is neither. He is a man in a stone box. The smell is comforting. It is organic. It is the smell of life. He buries his nose in the scarf, inhaling the wet wool. It filters the cold air. It warms it slightly. It is a survival mechanism. The light from the lantern catches a flake of snow that is drifting upwards in a thermal current. It rises, glowing gold, then falls again. The sentry watches its trajectory. It is a tiny narrative. Rise and fall, life and death. Rome and the barbarians, everything rises and falls. The snow falls. The empire falls. The man falls, but not tonight. Tonight the man stands. He counts the beats of his heart. Thud, thud, thud. It is slow. 40 beats a minute, 30. It is a hibernation rhythm, the bear in the cave, the frog in the mud, the legionary in the snow. They all slow down. They all wait for the sun. The sun is the engine. The engine is gone. The machine coasts on momentum. The snow on the walkway is now smooth, unbroken save for the holes where his legs disappear. The wind has smoothed over his footprints. There is no evidence that he walked here. He is an island. The drift is rising. It is inching up the thigh. It is trying to swallow him. He imagines the snow reaching his chest, his neck, his mouth. A white burial, he shudders. The movement shakes a cascade of snow from the helmet. Whump. It lands on the walkway. He is still here. The lantern flame flickers violently. A gust of wind has hit the housing. The sentry tenses. Do not go out, he pleads with the fire. Do not leave me alone. The flame fights. It dances. It clings to the wick. The wind passes. The flame steadies. The sentry exhales. A long white cloud of relief. The darkness almost won. The light held. The war continues. The sensation of the time is circular. The same flake falls. The same wind blows. The same cold bites. There is no progress. It is a loop. The sentry is trapped in the loop. He walks the circle of the watch without moving his feet. He traverses the vast distances of the night while standing still. It is a journey of the mind. He looks to the east. Is it lighter, perhaps? A subtle shift in the tone of the gray, a thinning of the black, or is it wishful thinking? The eyes want the light. The brain manufactures the light. He stares at the horizon. It is still dark, but it is a different dark. A waiting dark. The dawn is coming. It is inevitable. The earth turns. The sun burns. The light will come. He just has to be there when it arrives. The weight of the snow on the shoulders is a physical pressure that compresses the spine. He feels shorter. He feels driven into the ground like a stake. He is marking the boundary. He is the terminus, the god of boundaries. He stands on the line. On one side, civilization. On the other, the wild. He is the wall. The silence is broken by the sound of his own stomach rumbling, a low, gurgling sound of emptiness. It is a pathetic sound, a human sound. It reminds him of his mortality. He is not stone. He is guts and blood. He needs food. He needs warmth. The reminder is painful. It breaks the trance. He feels the cold more sharply for a moment. He feels the misery. Then he pushes it away. He returns to the stone state. The stomach can complain. The man will not. The snow continues to fall. Millions of flakes. Billions. They cover the world. They cover the war. They cover the peace. They cover the century. He stands. He watches. He endures. The night is deep, but the man is deep too. He has roots in the dark. He will not be moved. The night has now stretched into a duration that defies the human capacity for measurement. It is no longer a segment of time bounded by sunset and sunrise. It has become a permanent condition of existence, an endless, static epoch of ice and shadow. The sentry stands in the center of this eternity, a solitary vertical element in a world that has been relentlessly smoothed into horizontal submission. The snow has ceased its furious accumulation and has settled into a fine crystalline dust that hangs in the air like a frozen mist, suspended by the total absence of wind. The heavy drifts on the walkway have solidified, packing down under their own weight into a dense, structural mass that grips the sentry's legs with the firmness of setting concrete. He is buried to the hip. The lower half of his body has been claimed by the wall. Only the torso, the head, and the arms remain in the realm of the living, and even these are slowly being colonized by the frost. The cold has penetrated past the point of pain. The warning signals of the body, the shivering, the aching, the sharp stings of the freezing skin, have all fallen silent. The nervous system, exhausted by hours of screaming, has retreated into a state of numbness that feels dangerously like comfort. The sentry feels a strange, heavy warmth blooming in his chest, a false heat that radiates outward, suggesting that he should unbuckle the armor, loosen the cloak, and lie down in the soft white bed of the drift. It is the siren song of hypothermia, the paradoxical undressing phenomenon whispering in the primal brain. The rational mind, the Roman mind, recognizes this voice. It is the voice of death. It is the voice that says, "It is easier to sleep than to stand." The sentry fights it not with physical exertion, for he has none left, but with a rigid mental refusal. He clamps the jaw shut. He tightens the grip on the pillow. He denies the warmth. He chooses the cold because the cold is the truth. Visually, the scene has become a masterpiece of minimalism. The heavy charcoal darkness of the earlier hours has lifted imperceptibly, replaced by a deep slate-gray monochrome. It is not light, but rather a lessening of the density of the black. The visual drawing is now rendered in the faintest strokes of silver and ash. The lantern, still burning with a miraculous persistence, is a small, struggling heart of orange in this gray body. Its light is weak, barely pushing back the shadows, but it illuminates the immediate texture of the sentry's existence. The rime ice coating the chainmail of the subarmales, the white eyebrows of the mask-like face, the frost-thickened lashes that frame the dark, staring eyes. The contrast is low, the edges soft. The sentry looks less like a man and more like an ancient, weathered statue that has been standing on this ridge since the beginning of the world. The silence is profound, a vast, resonant emptiness that amplifies the microscopic. The sentry can hear the friction of his own eyelids sliding over the dry globes of the eyes. Click squelch. He can hear the tiny, popping sound of the saliva bubbles in the corner of his mouth freezing. Snap. He can hear the settling of the snow in the ditch, a soft, groaning subsidence that travels through the earth and into the stone. These sounds are the only proof that time is still moving. Without them, he would be trapped in a single, frozen frame. The absence of wind is total. The air is a solid block of cold that occupies the space, pressing against the face with a distinct, heavy pressure. To breathe is to push against this weight, to force the chest to expand against the resistance of the atmosphere and the armor. The mind drifts through a landscape of fragmented memories, untethered by logic. He remembers the heat of the bathhouse in the fortress, the steam rising from the caldarium, the sound of water splashing on tiles, the smell of olive oil and strigil-scraped skin. The memory is so vivid he can almost feel the humidity in his lungs. He tries to hold onto it, to wrap himself in the phantom steam, but the reality of the dry, biting air shatters the illusion. The bathhouse is 1,000 miles away, or perhaps 1,000 years. Here, there is only the frigidarium, the cold room of the world. He wonders if the water in the baths has frozen too. He wonders if the whole empire is under snow. It feels possible. It feels as if the sun has gone out forever. The armor, the Larica segmentata, is now a cage of ice. The condensation from his body heat, unable to escape through the layers of wool and leather, has frozen on the inside of the metal plates. He is wearing a lining of ice against his ribs. It restricts his breathing, turning each inhalation into a shallow sip of air. The leather straps that bind the armor are frozen hard as iron bands. If he were to try to undo them, they would likely snap. He is sealed in. The armor has become his skin, a hard exoskeleton that supports the soft, failing flesh inside. He leans his weight against the front of the cuirass, letting the metal hold him up. If the armor were removed, he feels he might simply collapse into a pile of loose bones and cloth. The lantern flame is dying. The oil is nearly gone. The carbon buildup on the wick is choking the fire. The light has shrunk to a blue-hazel bead, barely larger than a coin. It casts long, wavering shadows that stretch up the wall of the turret like reaching fingers. The sentry watches the shadows. They seem to move with a life of their own, dancing a slow, macabre waltz on the stone. He knows he should trim the wick. He knows he should check the oil. But the distance to the lantern feels infinite. His hands are buried in the folds of the cloak, useless blocks of frozen meat. He cannot make them work. He decides to let the lantern determine its own fate. If it dies, he will stand in the dark. It will be a final test, a test of faith in the dawn. The accumulation of snow on the scutum shield has buried it completely. It is now just a mound in the drift, indistinguishable from the parapet. The sentry's hand resting on the rim is invisible. He can feel the pressure of the snow on his wrist, a cold bracelet that tightens with every hour. He tries to wiggle the fingers. There is a faint, dull response from the index finger, a ripple of movement in the tendon. It is enough. The connection is still there. The hand is dormant, not dead. It waits for the spring of the body, for the return of the blood. The view to the north is a wall of gray fog. The snow has stopped falling heavily, but the mist remains, a thick, freezing vapor that hides the world. The sentry stares into it. He is looking for shapes, for patterns. The brain, starved of input, begins to generate its own. He sees a horseman riding slowly through the air, silent and gray. He sees a line of trees that walk like men. He sees a face, huge and pale, looking at him from the clouds. He blinks, and the images dissolve into swirling mist. He is not afraid of them. They are companions. They are the ghosts of the watch. He welcomes them. They are better than the emptiness. The smell of the air is the smell of old ice. It is a stale, metallic scent, like the air inside a sealed tomb. It lacks the freshness of the earlier storm. It is the smell of an atmosphere that has not moved for hours. It coats the tongue with a metallic taste. The sentry swallows, the throat clicking dryly. He imagines the taste of wine, thick, red, spiced wine. He imagines the burn of it going down. The sensation is so strong he almost chokes. The body craves the heat with a desperate, cellular hunger. But there is no wine. There is only the frozen saliva and the iron taste of the cold. The weight of the helmet is crushing. The neck muscles are screaming in a high-pitched, silent agony. They have been holding the head up for too long. The sentry wants to drop his chin to his chest to rest the helmet on the rim of the armor, but if he does, he will sleep. And if he sleeps, he will fall. He visualizes the vertebrae of his neck as a stack of stone coins. He balances them carefully, one on top of the other. It is a mental game of engineering. Keep the column straight. Keep the capital level. The discipline holds the head up when the muscles fail. A sudden, sharp sound cracks the silence. Bang! It is a tree in the distance exploding from the cold. The sap inside has frozen and expanded, shattering the wood. The sound is like a gunshot. The sentry does not flinch. His body is too rigid to react, but his eyes dart to the north. The sound came from the wild. It is a reminder that the land is suffering too. The trees are dying. The stones are cracking. The winter is an indiscriminate killer. It attacks the wood and the flesh and the rock with equal violence. The sentry feels a grim solidarity with the exploding tree. They are both standing in the dark, waiting to break. The texture of the wool cloak against the cheek is rough and icy. The fibers are frozen stiff. It feels like sandpaper. The sentry rubs his face against it slowly. Scritch, scritch. The sensation is abrasive, painful. He does it again. The pain is a tether. It proves he has a face. It proves he can feel. He uses the pain to sharpen his focus. He traces the weave of the fabric with his skin, warp and weft, over and under, the simple geometry of the loom. It is a human order in a chaotic night. The boredom has transcended into a spiritual state. The sentry has passed through the phases of irritation, anger, and lethargy, and has arrived at a place of empty acceptance. He is a vessel. He is waiting to be filled with the morning. The thoughts are no longer circular, they are static. He holds a single concept in his mind for minutes at a time. Stone, he thinks of stone. Hard, gray, enduring. Iron, he thinks of iron. Cold, sharp, rusty. White, he thinks of white. Soft, cold, blinding. These concepts are the pillars of his meditation. The feet are gone. He has no sensation below the knees. He knows he has feet only because he is not falling over. They are blocks of ice encased in leather, buried in snow. He wonders vaguely if they will ever walk again. He imagines walking on wooden legs. Clump, clump. It seems a fair trade. 2 feet for a night on the wall. The empire demands its pound of flesh. He has given 2 pounds of frozen meat. He accepts the bargain. The lantern flickers, a final gasp. The flame jumps, turns a sickly green, and then dies. The light vanishes instantly. The world plunges into a deep, uniform gray. The sentry is blind. For a moment, panic flares in the chest, a cold, sharp spike of adrenaline. The darkness is total. He is alone. He grips the railing, the leather gloves creaking. He strains his eyes, widening them until they hurt. He searches for a photon, for a spark. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the eyes adjust. The darkness is not absolute. The snow, even without the lantern, holds a faint, ghostly luminescence. It reflects the diffused starlight that penetrates the clouds. The world is a landscape of shadows and pale gray forms. He can see the line of the parapet. He can see the shape of the shield. He is not blind. He is seeing with the eyes of the night animal. The loss of the lantern changes the psychological landscape. The warm, amber friend is gone. The sphere of influence has collapsed. There is no longer an inside and an outside. The cold gray world has washed over the post. The sentry is now fully immersed in the environment. He is no longer fighting the dark. He is part of it. He stands in the gray, a darker shade of gray. He feels a strange liberation. The duty to the light is over. Now there is only the duty to the wall. The silence seems to deepen with the darkness. The visual noise of the light is gone, leaving a vacuum. The sentry listens. He hears the wind beginning to rise again far to the north, a low, mournful moan. Woo-hoo. It is the voice of the morning wind, the wind that sweeps the world clean before the sun. It sounds sad, lonely. It travels over the empty bogs, over the frozen lakes, over the sleeping tribes. It comes to the wall and finds the sentry. It pulls at his cloak. It whispers in his ear. Sleep. Sleep, he shakes his head. Not yet. The cold is now entering the final fortress. The core temperature is dropping. The shivering has stopped because the body has no energy left to shiver. The mental confusion is increasing. He forgets where he is. Is he in Britannia or Germania or on the moon? It looks like the moon, gray dust, craters of snow, silence. He floats in the confusion, drifting between realities. He sees his mother's face. She is holding a bowl of soup. He reaches for it. The hand hits the icy railing. The shock brings him back. Britannia, wall, snow, stand. He begins to recite the oath of the Legion, Sacramentum. I swear to obey the Emperor. The words are frozen in his mind. He cannot speak them. The tongue is a stone, but he says them internally. To follow the standards. The standards are buried. The eagle is frozen. To never desert. He is not deserting. He is planted. He is a tree. Until death. The word hangs in the silence. Death. It is close. It is sitting on his shoulder, wrapped in a gray cloak. It is not scary. It is just cold. The texture of the snow on the walkway has changed again. The fresh dust has coated the hard-packed drift, making it velvety. The sentry looks down at his legs. They are just mounds in the velvet. He tries to move the right leg. He sends the command. Nothing happens. The leg is fused. He is part of the architecture. If he wanted to leave now, he would have to chip himself out with a pickaxe. He is a fossil in the making. The sky to the east is changing. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, a shifting of the atoms of the dark. The heavy, oppressive black is lifting, replaced by a deep, bruised purple. It is the color of a hematoma. It is the first wound in the night. The sentry watches it. He does not trust it. It could be a trick of the tired eyes. He stares at the horizon, willing the purple to spread. Bleed, he thinks. Bleed light into the world. The purple deepens. It spreads. A thin line of indigo appears above the hills. It is real. The earth is turning. The sun is coming back to save him. The realization brings a surge of emotion that is almost painful. Hope is a sharp thing. It hurts the chest. He feels a tear leak from the eye. It is hot. It burns the cheek. It freezes instantly. He holds onto the hope. He grips the pilum. He straightens the spine. I have beaten the night. The thought is a triumphant shout in the silent mind. He has outlasted the darkness. He has stood the watch. But the dawn is slow. It is a torturous creeping event. The light grows by lumens per hour. The gray lifts to a lighter gray. The shapes of the hills begin to emerge from the mist. They are white giants sleeping in a row. The bog reveals itself as a flat, white plain. The world is being reassembled piece by piece out of the shadows. The sentry watches the creation. He sees a tree. He sees a rock. He sees the line of the ditch. The world is still there. It did not disappear. The wind picks up, blowing the snow dust across the walkway. It stings the face. It is a waking wind. It slaps the sentry, telling him to alert the senses. Wake up, look, see. He blinks the ice from his lashes. He opens the eyes wide. The gray world is sharp, etched in cold. The softness of the night is gone, replaced by the brutal clarity of the morning twilight. The lantern is dead, a black metal cage hanging on a post. The snow is dirty white, stained by the shadows. The romance of the dark is over. The reality of the day is here. He feels the weight of his own body returning. The numbness is receding slightly, replaced by a deep, grinding pain in every joint. The pain is good. The pain is the price of survival. He accepts it. He welcomes the agony of the thawing blood. He feels the pins and needles in the fingers. 1,000 tiny fires burning in the nerves. He flexes the hand. It moves. It hurts, but it moves. The snow on the helmet begins to slide. A large clump falls forward, landing on the visor, blocking the view. The sentry reaches up with a stiff hand and brushes it away. The movement is clumsy, like a bear swiping at a fly. The snow falls. The view clears. The indigo line in the east is now a band of pale blue. The stars are gone. The moon is a faint ghost. The sun is pushing against the lid of the world. He hears a sound from the fort below. A trumpet, cornu, clear, brassy, loud. It cuts through the cold air like a knife. Ta-ta-ta-tum. Reveille, the call to wake, the call to duty. The sentry's heart leaps. It is the voice of the legion. They are awake. The machine is starting up. Smoke rises from the chimneys of the barracks. Gray columns of warmth rising into the gray sky. He watches the smoke. It is the most beautiful thing he has ever seen. The relief will be coming soon. He imagines the sound of their boots on the wooden stairs. Thud, thud, thud. He imagines the face of the centurion. He imagines the steam of the porridge. He imagines the fire, but they are not here yet. He is still alone on the wall. The transition is not complete. The watch is not over until the password is exchanged. He must hold the post for the final mile. He looks down at the snow drift that holds him. He realizes he has urinated in the armor at some point in the night. He didn't feel it. It is frozen now, a warm patch that turned to ice. It adds to the shame and to the humanity. He is a dirty, frozen, tired animal, but he is a standing animal. He has not fallen. The visual style of the scene is now low contrast gray and white. The colored pencil marks are light, feathery. The heavy blacks are gone. The paper is white. The world is washed out, bleached by the cold. The sentry is a dark sketch in the center of a blank page. He is the only contrast left. He breathes in the morning air. It is still freezing, but it tastes different. It tastes of smoke and daylight. It tastes of survival. He fills the lungs, expanding the frozen chest plates. The ice cracks, crack. He exhales. The plume of breath is gray in the dawn light. It rises up, joining the mist. He is a dragon of the north. He has guarded the horde of the empire. He waits, the sky brightens. The gray turns to silver. The silver turns to pearl. The sun is a promise kept. The sentry stands. The wall stands. The night is broken. The dawn does not break. It bleeds slowly into the fabric of the night, diluting the heavy charcoal darkness with a persistent infusion of pale, milky gray. The transformation of the sky is a geological event, a shifting of tectonic plates of light that grind against the retreating shadow. The sentry, still rooted in the snowdrift on the walkway, witnesses this transition not as a triumph of the sun, but as a subtle alteration in the texture of his suffering. The black void that had pressed against his eyeballs for hours recedes, revealing the true and terrible extent of the winter's work. The world that emerges from the gloom is a white wasteland, a landscape sculpted by the wind and cemented by the frost into a topography of alien curves and smooth, featureless mounds. The wall itself has disappeared, buried under a rampart of snow that slopes gently from the parapet down into the ditch, creating a continuous, frozen wave that connects the empire to the wild. The light is cold, devoid of heat. It is a silver luminescence that reflects off the millions of ice crystals covering the sentry's armor, creating a shimmering aura around his silhouette. He stands now not in darkness, but in a blinding, diffused glare. The snow, which had been a soft, gray velvet in the night, becomes a hard, brilliant white that stings the tired eyes. He squints, narrowing the eyelids to mere slits to filter the intensity of the morning. The pupils, dilated for hours in the low light of the lantern, contract painfully, a sharp muscular reaction deep within the skull. The vision clears, sharpens, and locks onto the reality of the northern horizon. There is nothing there. No army, no monsters, no movement. Only the white hills, the white trees, and the gray sky. The threat was the night itself, and the night has retreated, leaving its frozen wreckage behind. The silence of the dawn is different from the silence of the night. It is an expectant silence. The wind has dropped completely, leaving the air still and brittle. In this stillness, the sentry hears the first sound of the relief. It is not a trumpet nor a shout. It is the rhythmic, grinding crunch of heavy boots breaking through the crust of the snow. Crump, crump, crump. The sound comes from the west, moving along the line of the wall. It is the sound of time moving forward again. The sentry does not turn his head. The neck muscles are too stiff, the ice collar too rigid. He waits, his eyes fixed on the north, listening to the approaching footsteps. They are slow, deliberate steps. The relief is fighting the same drift, pushing through the same weight. A figure emerges from the mist along the walkway. He is a dark shape against the white background, a mirror image of the sentry. He is wrapped in a heavy cloak, his helmet capped with snow, his shield dragging a furrow in the drift. He moves with the heavy, plodding gait of a man wading through water. It is the Optio accompanied by the fresh guard. They stop 5 paces away. There is no crisp salute. The conditions do not allow for the theater of discipline. There is only a nod, a slow inclination of the frozen head. The Optio looks at the sentry. He sees the mask of ice, the white beard, the statue-like immobility. He understands. He steps forward, his boots sinking deep into the snow, and places a gloved hand on the sentry's shoulder. Relief, he says. The word is a puff of gray steam. It hangs in the air between them. The voice is low, rough, muffled by the scarf. It sounds like a voice from a dream. The sentry hears the word, relief. It takes a moment for the brain to process the command. The neural pathways are clogged with the cold. The signal travels down the spine through the frozen nerves to the legs. Move. The sentry attempts to shift his weight. The ice that has cemented his greaves to the drift resists. He is locked in. He has to lean forward, using the weight of the torso to break the seal. There is a loud crack, like the snapping of a dry branch, as the ice fractures around his shins. He lifts the right foot. It is a block of lead. He drags it forward. The movement sends a shockwave of pain through the dormant muscles. The blood, which had pooled and thickened, begins to surge back into the capillaries. It burns. It feels as if the legs are on fire. He steps out of the mold he has made. He looks back at the empty space in the snow. It is a perfect negative impression of his lower body, a pair of hollow cylinders leading down to the walkway. He has left a part of himself there. He stumbles slightly, his balance compromised by the numbness of the feet. The fresh guard steps into the holes, assuming the position. The cycle completes. One piece of iron replaces another. The wall remains manned. The walk back to the turret is a journey of agony and vertigo. The sentry follows the Optio, stepping in his footprints to save energy. The walkway is a treacherous, undulating path of ice. Every step is a negotiation with gravity. The sentry focuses on the back of the Optio's cloak. He counts the steps. 1, 2, 3. The turret looms out of the mist, a square tower of stone capped with a heavy mushroom of snow. The door is half buried. They have to kick the snow away to clear the threshold. The Optio opens the door. It groans on rusted hinges. A blast of air hits the sentry's face. It smells of wood smoke, stale sweat, and damp wool. Compared to the sterile purity of the outside air, it is a foul, choking stench. But to the sentry, it is the perfume of life. He steps over the threshold into the darkness of the turret stairwell. The door closes behind him, shutting out the white glare. The sudden darkness is disorienting. He fumbles for the railing. The wood is worn smooth, greasy to the touch. He begins the descent. The stairs are steep, narrow, and treacherous. His hobnails clatter on the wood. Clack, clack, clack. His knees scream in protest. They do not want to bend. He descends stiff-legged like a marionette with tangled strings. At the bottom of the tower there is a small guardroom. A fire burns in a brazier, a bed of red coals giving off a low, fierce heat. Two men are sitting on a bench, wrapping their legs in wool strips. They look up as the sentry enters. Their faces are flushed, their eyes clear. They belong to the day. The sentry belongs to the night. He does not speak to them. He is a ghost passing through. He pushes through the heavy leather curtain that leads to the courtyard of the fort. The fort is waking up. The visual scene shifts from the white minimalism of the wall to the muddy, brown clutter of the garrison. The ground is a slush of trampled snow and mud, churned up by the hooves of mules and the boots of men. The air is filled with the sounds of the morning, the ring of a hammer on an anvil, the shouting of a cook, the braying of a donkey. These sounds are loud, sharp, and chaotic. They assault the sentry's ears, which are attuned to the silence. He lowers his head, pulling the helmet down to shield his eyes and ears. He trudges through the slush, heading for the barracks block. The barracks building is a long, low structure of timber and stone, the roof sagging under the weight of the snow. Smoke pours from the clay tiles of the chimney. The sentry reaches the door of his contubernium, his squad room. He pushes it open. The heat hits him like a physical blow. It is a dense, humid warmth, generated by the bodies of 8 men and a small hearth. The air is thick with the smell of drying leather, lentil porridge, and sleep. It is the womb of the Legion. He steps inside and lets the door close. The noise of the camp is cut off. He stands in the center of the room. The floor is packed earth covered in straw. The walls are plastered and painted a dull red. Bunks line the walls, 2-tiered wooden frames filled with straw mattresses. Most of the men are up, sitting on the edges of their beds, eating from wooden bowls or polishing their kit. They look at him. They see the ice on his armor, the 1,000-yard stare in his eyes. They know the look. They offer no greeting. There is a respect in their silence. They make space for him near the fire. The process of undressing is a ritual of pain. The sentry stands by the hearth, letting the heat wash over him. The ice on his armor begins to melt. It drips onto the earthen floor. Drip, drip, drip. He starts with the gloves. He uses his teeth to pull at the fingertips of the left glove. The leather is stiff, frozen to the shape of the grip. It resists. He pulls harder. The glove slides off, revealing the hand. The skin is white, wrinkled like a washerwoman's, and cold to the touch. The fingernails are blue. He flexes the fingers. They move slowly, aching deep in the joints. He rubs them together, trying to spark some feeling. Next, the scarf. He unwinds the frozen wool from his neck. It is a solid collar of ice. He has to break it to get it off. He peels it away from his beard. The hairs of the beard are frozen into the wool. It pulls. He winces. He pulls harder. The scarf comes away, taking a few hairs with it. The skin of the face, suddenly exposed to the warm air, begins to prickle and burn. The blood rushes back into the cheeks, turning them a bright, mottled red. The sensation is intense. A pin's end needles fire that spreads across the jaw and the nose. The helmet is next. He undoes the chin strap. The buckle is cold and small. His clumsy fingers fumble with the bronze pin. It takes a long time. He focuses on the buckle, narrowing his world to this one small mechanical task. Finally, the pin slips through the hole. The strap falls loose. He lifts the helmet off his head. The weight is gone. The neck floats. He runs a hand through his hair. It is matted and damp. He places the helmet on the rack. It sits there, a wet, dark dome, the snow on top beginning to turn to slush. The cloak, the sagum, is the heaviest burden. He unpins the fibula brooch at the shoulder. The cloak falls to the floor with a heavy thud. It stands up by itself for a moment, rigid with ice, before collapsing into a sodden heap. The sentry feels light, almost weightless. He is shedding the winter layer by layer. Now the armor, the larica segmentata. This requires help. One of his messmates, a young soldier from Gaul, stands up and steps behind him. He undoes the leather ties at the back. He loosens the buckles on the chest. He lifts the heavy iron girdle from the sentry's shoulders. The armor clatters onto the bench. The sentry is left in his tunic and subarmales. The padded jacket is damp with sweat and condensation. He unlaces it and pulls it off. The linen tunic underneath is stained and wet. He shivers. It is a violent, uncontrollable shudder that runs through his entire body. It is the body's reaction to the change in temperature, the release of the tension held for 10 hours. He sits down on the edge of his bunk. The straw mattress rustles. It sounds like the dry grass of summer. He leans forward and begins to unlace his boots. This is the hardest part. The leather laces are frozen knots. He picks at them with his fingernails. He curses softly, a whisper of frustration. The Gaulish soldier kneels down and takes over. He uses a small knife to loosen the knots. He pulls the boots off. The socks are wet wool. They are peeled away. The feet are pale, waxy, and cold as marble. The toes are white. The soldier rubs them vigorously with a rough cloth. The friction generates heat. The pain is sharp, a burning agony as the nerves wake up. The sentry grits his teeth. He accepts the pain. It means he gets to keep the feet. Someone hands him a bowl of porridge. It is gray, lumpy, and steaming. He holds the bowl in both hands, letting the heat seep into his palms. He brings it to his face and inhales the steam. It smells of grain and salt. He takes a spoonful. The heat of the food travels down his throat, a glowing coal that settles in his stomach. It radiates outward, fighting the cold from the inside. He eats slowly, mechanically. The spoon scrapes the wood of the bowl. Scrape, scrape. The sound is domestic, comforting. The conversation in the room washes over him. Men talking about the roster, about the weather, about a rumor of a shipment of wine. The sentry does not listen. The words are just noise. He is still on the wall in his mind. He is still watching the snow. The transition from the solitude of the watch to the society of the barracks is slow. He is present in body, but his spirit is lagging behind, trudging back through the drift. He finishes the food and sets the bowl down. The fatigue hits him now, a crashing wave of exhaustion that pulls his eyelids down. The adrenaline has faded. The will has let go. The body demands its due. He strips off the wet tunic and puts on a dry one. The linen is rough and warm. He climbs into the bunk. The straw mattress conforms to his shape. He pulls the heavy woolen blanket up to his chin. The blanket smells of the other men who have slept under it. It smells of the Legion. He lies on his back, staring at the ceiling. The timber beams are dark, stained with soot. He traces the grain of the wood with his eyes. It is the same wood as the walkway, the same wood as the shield. But here it is dry. Here it is safe. He feels the warmth of the room settling into his bones. The shivering stops. The muscles of the legs twitch and jump, releasing the stored tension. He closes his eyes. The darkness behind the eyelids is not the black void of the night. It is a warm, red darkness infused with the light of the fire. He listens to the sounds of the room, the crackle of the logs, the murmur of voices, the rhythmic breathing of a man sleeping in the bunk above. These are the sounds of safety. They act as an anchor, holding him in the world of the living. But as he drifts deeper, the wall returns. In the space between waking and sleeping, he is back on the walkway. He feels the wind. He sees the snow falling. He feels the cold iron of the pilum in his hand. He sees the lantern flame flickering. The image is tenacious. It has burned itself into his retina. He wonders if he will ever truly leave the wall. Perhaps a part of him is always there, standing in the dark, watching the north. Perhaps the sentry who relieved him is just another version of himself. He thinks of the snow covering the hills. It covers everything. It creates a blank slate. It erases the mistakes of the past and the fears of the future. There is only the white present. The thought is soothing. The snow is not an enemy. It is a blanket. It quiets the world. It allows for rest. The breathing slows, in, out, in, out. It is deep and even. The chest rises and falls without the restriction of the armor. The heart rate drops. The blood moves slowly, warm and thick. The mind unspools. The logic of the day dissolves into the abstract imagery of dreams. He sees a field of wheat in the summer sun. He hears the buzzing of bees. He feels the heat on his face. The cold is a memory. The wall is a story told to someone else. Outside, the sun climbs higher in the gray sky. The light strengthens, turning the snow to blinding silver. The wind picks up, blowing the loose powder across the stone face of the wall. The fresh sentry stands at his post, narrowing his eyes against the glare, pulling his cloak tighter. He begins his count. 1 hour down, 9 to go. The cycle continues. The empire holds its breath. The stone endures. But the man in the bunk sleeps. He sleeps the deep, dreamless sleep of the exhausted. He sleeps like a stone at the bottom of a river. He has survived the night. He has paid his tax to the winter. He is safe. For now. The story ends here, not with a victory, but with a cessation. The ending is simply the stopping of the effort. The sleep is the reward. The darkness is not conquered, merely outlasted. The wheel turns. The snow falls. The sleep comes.